Hello. Today I'm going to purposely destroy my voice by reading Radical Dreamers. Oh well. Really want to get this done before moving into Chrono Cross proper. Meant to do this yesterday, but I was hurting like a bitch. Had to get some eye wash for it and everything. Ugh. But anyway. It all began with a notebook my mother handed me. She told me she found it while cleaning out the closet. This old notebook covered with mold was a diary that belonged to my grandfather, who passed away years ago. It contained his distant memories. I wonder if you still remember how we first met and our many adventures. It all seems like a dream. We ran like the wind during those warm summer days long ago. You were a piece of a star that fell from the sky. I can still relive the memories of those days long past. Just by closing my eyes like so and whispering your name into the desolate night. Kid. 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 Hey, kid. Are you ready, kid? I know you're anxious, but stay on your toes. Yeah, likewise, mate. You mess up and I'm leaving you behind. Got that, Serge? Come on, Miguel, let's go. That bastard Lynx is gonna get what he deserves. Say your prayers. Not that it'll do you any good. It's hard to know who's talking, and it's fucking auto text, which is annoying. Now we're gonna have auto text. The old lady's tip-off was right on the money. The counterspell on the barrier around the outer walls could have done a real number on us. Kid's plain, unadorned braid flicked back and forth across her shoulders as she walked. We picked our way through the elaborate lattice of the manor's magical shields, moving in closer and closer to Lord Lynx's stronghold. There were three of us, Kid, McGill, and me. I guess it must have been 3 years already since I first met Kid. Back then I was just a wandering musician, travelling wherever my feet would take me, and wherever a few tunes would pay for a warm bed. It was in the Outlands, in a town called Rigoria, where we first ran across one another, and since then she dragged me along on a whole bunch of adventures, and misadventures too. Ah, Kid. She was a thief. And not just any thief. Just a few months shy of 17 and already renowned as one of the realm's greatest. What's more, she was achingly beautiful, stylish, a joy to be around, and a dab hand at campsite cooking, or so she liked to claim. The truth was a little different. Those bandits with hearts of gold you've heard about in the stories, the ones who steal from the rich to give to the poor, yeah, that wasn't Kid's style. She was short-tempered, prone to lying, bossy, and obsessed with money, and rarely did she care to listen to a single word anyone said to her. But she wasn't all bad, probably. Maybe. Sometimes. She had her moments, anyway. I glanced over my shoulder to see a shadow hovering behind us, blending into the darkness like smoke. McGill, also known as McGill the Shade. He was Kid's partner, but even after 3 years, I still knew hardly anything about him. All I knew was that he was around 30 years old, and not much of a talker, but he was one heck of a mage. I heard that he and Kid had started working together way before I met her. He always covered the top half of his face with a mask, and I'd never seen what he looked like underneath. He was a man so mysterious that it sometimes seemed like he was an interloper from another world. It wasn't like Kid was exactly big on details about her past, but McGill? He might as well not have had one. And Kid didn't seem to know much about her partner in crime either. What kind of man was he? What kind of man he was? What kind of life he'd lived before? Nothing. You might ask how exactly I wound up being a part of this merry band. Well, it's complicated. I guess you could say that life doesn't always turn out the way you think it will. Kid, who was heading up our little raiding party, suddenly stopped dead.
Look lively, boys. We've got company.
He glanced around wearily as cold, cruel eyes emerged from the darkness. I heard a low growl. Dark shadows prowl through the night, surrounding us. A pack of wildcats. There must have been about 10 of them. A thrill of fear ran down my spine. Flustered, I pulled my knife from my belt. Kid calmly shifted into a fighting stance.
Watch yourselves. I don't reckon these buggers been treated for rabies.
The wildcats snarled and growled as they slowly closed in on us, drawing the noose tighter and tighter. Their eyes glinted in the darkness like fireflies, and strings of eager spittle dripped wetly to the ground. Then one of them sent an almighty roar soaring to the moon, and the hunt was on. What was I going to do? What? Okay, apparently I have to click fast. Think fast! Kid dived into the thick of the pack of wildcats and gave the largest of their number an almighty kick in the chops. The startled beast gave a yelp as it was sent flying. I turned to my right to see that a nearby wildcat was charging towards me, its head lowered menacingly. Panicked, I tried to make a last-second dodge, but I wasn't quite fast enough. Its claws scraped against my side as it rushed past me. I winced in pain for a moment, and turned to face my foe and readied myself. Tried to use magic, but I didn't know any spell. The wildcat lunged at me, its jaws agape. Ugh! By pure reflex, I shielded my face with my arm. An intense pain shot through me from my wrist to my shoulder. The wildcat tried to sink its fangs in deeper, but its grip was poor. I shook it off and gave it a kick for good measure, sending it running back into the pack.
Surge, behind you!
Panicked by Kid's warning, I whirled wildly around and came face to face with a pair of eyes blazing like hellfire. The wildcat was coming right at me. By reflex, I ducked its attack, swiping through the air directly over my head. I felt its hot breath on my cheek as it flew by me. At the same time, I thrust my knife upwards, plunging it into the beast's belly. With a horrible cry of agony, the wildcat crashed face first into the ground. But I lost my balance in the chaos and fell down in a heap as well. I rolled over and was only just able to stagger back to my feet before readying myself for my next opponent. I was breathing heavily. The handle of my knife was slick with sweat, and I tightened my grip. With a kick, like a bolt of lightning, he had landed a clean hit on the flank of a nearby wildcat. It staggered before losing its footing, letting out a pathetic cry, but Kid had already moved in to finish it off. And then, the roar of fire. The burning smell filled my nostrils, and next to me a shrill screech pierced the air. Miguel's fire spell engulfed the head of a nearby wildcat. It fled, darting off into the darkness like an arrow. I scanned the area. Only moments ago we had been surrounded, but now there wasn't a single wildcat left. Kid and Miguel had either sent the rest off with their tails between their legs, or put paid to them once and for all.
Heh, you're dreaming if you think a pack of flea-bitten moggies is gonna stop us, Lynx.
Kid crossed her arms and flashed a triumphant grin. Meanwhile, I was panting heavily, and it felt like my legs were about to give out from under me. I collapsed to my knees, overwhelmed by what I'd just been through. Whew. I'd taken a few hits, but I was fine otherwise. A couple of scars to talk about later, maybe, but nothing that would stop me carrying on. Are you hurt? Miguel looked down at me, his face expressionless as ever. No worries, Mag.
No worries, Meg. He'll be alright,
said Kid, barging in to get a better look at me.
He may be a whining sook. He may be a whinging sook, but it'll take more than a few scratches to kill this one.
She was nothing if not sympathetic. She was right. This was no time to be bemoaning my lot. We hadn't even reached the manor yet. I dabbed at my wounds with a tincture-soaked cloth and wrapped them with bandages, then looked up at the other two. We're just getting started, I grinned back, putting up a brave face on things.
That's what I like to hear,
Kid cheerily announced from close quarters. But then her eyes turned cold, like the cool glower of the moon in the night sky.
It's gonna be a long night.
I nodded, trying my hardest not to utterly lose myself in her pale blue eyes.
Alright, let's get this show back on the road.
She turned away and marched off deeper into the trees, without looking behind to see if me and Miguel were following her. Miguel, of course, was already right behind her, his unhurried gait making it seem as though nothing much had happened at all. I jumped back up to my feet to chase after them. I'd be in for even more trouble than I'd bargained for if I got separated from them. The dark forest inside the manor's perimeter seemed to go on forever, a labyrinth of trees and boulders. The manor itself loomed in the distance, glowering over the vast grounds, and hidden within was a veritable mountain of treasure just waiting for us. Lord Lynx was the noble who ruled the remote territory of Rigoria. He was also Kid's mortal enemy. We were there that night to steal a certain jewel he kept locked away in his most closely guarded vault, the Frozen Flame. The Frozen Flame was veiled in mystery. It was said to be imbued with an uncanny energy and possessed of a beauty and clarity that made it a priceless treasure. Countless thieves had tried to steal it, and not one of them had come close to succeeding. Nor had any of them escaped the manor alive. And now it was our turn to try and sneak into this place of death. Led by a girl who had the ambition to make the impossible possible, a hunger for vengeance that drove her onward, and a desire for riches that could never be satisfied. As we pressed on through the tree-filled darkness, the shadows gave way at last, revealing the true extent of the vast mansion.
Finally, say your prayers, Lynx, 'cause we're coming for you.
Keeping to the overgrowth and the shadows of the trees, we made our way around the manor walls in search of a means of entry. Eventually, we came to a terrace overlooking the garden. There was no sign of any guards nearby. The only thing surrounding the manor was an uncanny stillness. This will lead us straight into the west wing, just as well. We don't have any business in the rest of the manor tonight, said Miguel, gazing up at the dark building towering over us in the night.
Alright then, what are we waiting for?
With that, Kid made to vault over the railing of the terrace. Stop, Miguel says sharply. Remember, what we're here for. Our main target is the vault and the frozen flame within it. We focus on this above all else. Your vengeance is of secondary concern. Agreed? Glancing over her soldier, Clyd replied with a reluctant,
Yeah, don't get your knickers in a twist. But if we happen to run into him, I'm gonna knock that Drongo's block off, and neither you nor anybody else is gonna stop me.
I guess Kid was going to get away whether we liked it or not.
Let's go, boys. The night is young.
She cleared the railing with a sprightly hop and vanished inside the manor. I glanced towards Miguel and nodded in silence. We followed Kid's lead and were soon inside Lord Lynx's lair. The darkness swallowed us whole. The corridor stretched off to the left and right. From the terrace it seemed equally dark and chilling in both directions. Go right. We pressed on through the darkness, down the corridors that turned and twisted snake-like, this way and that. Everything around us was still and silent, and it felt strangely like we were being watched. It was as if countless eyes were staring silently from the bloody hell where was that auto. We continued creeping cautiously down the corridors, Kid moved proudly and stealthily like a cat stalking its prey, while in the shadows Miguel followed, gliding softly and silently like a sinister breeze. We pressed on into the A short way along the corridor running from the right-hand side of the terrace, we found an ancient-looking door, again on our right. Kid pressed an ear against it, listening for any sign of life. Dead quiet.
Dead quiet. Don't reckon there's anybody in there. Here we go.
Kid stilled her breath and reached for the handle. The door wasn't locked. It swung open.
What's this room supposed to be? Place is a dump.
Kid had poked her head in through the door, taking a quick peek to see if there was anyone inside, and was disappointed by what she found. The room was large, and littered with peculiar-looking machinery and knickknacks, all of which were covered in dust, seemingly being dumped there haphazardly. Everything looked like it had been there, rusting for a very long time. The ends of the room were completely dark, and it was impossible to tell just how big it was, or even what the walls and floors looked like. It seemed the manor's inhabitants had turned the old clock tower into a makeshift storage space some time ago. I stepped wearily inside. Right. Leave that alone. I looked over toward Miguel and saw Kid trying to pull something from the shadows. It was a huge saw that appeared to be very old indeed. You don't need that all bludgeoned, it'll only get in the way. And as much of an antique as it is, it won't fetch much on the market in that condition.
Yeah, reckon it might. You know, there's plenty of collectors who just love old bits of junk. Well, some old bits of junk.
Pouting, Kid left the stall where she stood. At least she put it back down gently. It was then that we heard a voice from the shadows. And what exactly are you doing here? I just about jumped out of my skin. Who's there? Kid and Miguel turned to face the voice, ready for a fight. A wizened crone emerged from the shadows. She was hunched over and wore a hood draped over her face. I could tell at a glance that she wasn't just old, she was positively ancient.
It's just some doddery old bag. What do you think you're doing, sneaking up on us like that?
Kid's shoulders relaxed as the tension left her body. Miguel, however, continued to give the woman a piercing stare.
What an impish little thing you are. Here to visit a friend, perhaps? Not in the dead of night, I suspect.
The crone narrowed her eyes.
Let's get a closer look at you. Ah, yes. You must be here to get your revenge on Lynx.
How did she... My heart jumped. She seemed to know exactly who we were. We were in trouble. What if she sounded the alarm? We'd have to give up on the treasure and run for our lives. What were we going to do?
So what if we are?
Kid narrowed her eyes right back at the crone.
What's it to you if we're here to get our revenge on old Lynxy boy? You gonna do something about it? You never change, do you?
The crone chuckled madly, her small frame shaking.
Ah, the boldness of youth. Yes, that's the spirit. What?
Kid looked at the crone, completely confused. I was no less mystified.
What the heck are you on about? Oh, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, it was around then that an innocent young thief stole into the manor, looking to singe Lord Lynx's whiskers. She couldn't have been much older than 10 now that I think of it.
Shocked, my gaze turned to Kid. A wet glint had appeared in Kid's eyes, but her glare was like ice. Certainly felt as if the temperature in the room had suddenly dropped below freezing. With a chuckle, the crone continued her story, pretending not to have noticed the change in mood.
She was an orphan, you know. Came after Lynx to avenge a woman who loved her like her own daughter. But all that vengefulness in the world couldn't change the fact that she was only a little girl. She was no match for Lynx's men, sadly, and they quickly captured her. Lynx is the kind of man one would fear to have for an ally, never mind a foe. Had it not been for the timely assistance of a friend of hers, the girl would have certainly been executed. The way the people of the manor told it, the very shadows pitied the girl and rushed in to spirit her away. I wonder how much of the tale could be true. I have nothing but sympathy for those who know failure. Of course, you can't win all the time. And sometimes, against all odds, fate really can be foiled, and the clockwork of history sent into disarray. No, the ones I have no patience for are those who do not recognize their failure, or who fail and choose to give up as a result.
The crone looked up from under her hood, stared Kid directly in the face and grinned. Kid's anger faded, giving way to a dumbfounded expression.
If you wish to steal the jewel from Lynx, if you truly wish to triumph, you will have to let go of a treasure of your own, Kid. For as long as you cling on to it, the hands of your clock will never move. They'll stay exactly where they came to rest all those years ago. Who are you? Me? Why, I'm just an old bag, like you said. I do apologize. I must have taken up a lot of your time with all my babbling. I'll leave you in peace. Oh, before I go.
The crone turned to face me.
You seem to be injured, young man. If you wish, I can take a look at your wounds.
With all the attention suddenly turned towards me, I panicked a little. All right, then, please do. What? All right, then, please do. The crone muttered a few words as her bony fingers drew sigils in the air. Pale, gentle light began to surround my body, filling me with a strange warmth.
Strike a light. That's no ordinary spell.
Kid was impressed. I felt my wounds healing, and had a nostalgic melody that soothed the wounds in my heart. Before I realized it, the crone was gone. Hey lady! Is that Kid? I can never tell who's talking.
Hey lady!
Kid strained her eyes, scanning the darkness. But there was no one to be seen, and her calls went unanswered.
Who the bloody heck was that?
Kid looked like she'd just woken up on the floor of the laughing pig after a few too many.
And what did she mean about you having...
And what did she mean about you having to let go of a treasure?
Well, we won't find any...
Well, we won't find any answers here. Time to move on. Miguel brought us back down to earth, motionless as always. It almost seemed as if he thought nothing had happened at all.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Kid walked quickly to the door, keen to move on. Hold it, you. Just as I was about to follow Kid out of the room, she jabbed me in the side.
Hold it, you.
Just as I was about to follow Kid out of the room, she jabbed me in the side with her elbow.
You stingy little bugger, Serge. Why didn't you tell her to share some of that healing magic with the rest of us?
Classic Kid. The door led back into the corridor, which stretched off to the left and right. Rightward lay the depths of the manor, while the way to our left back to the terrace. Right down the corridor. Continuing on down the corridor, came across a rather sturdy-looking door on our left. A little further on stood a stairway leading upwards.
Well, this door's clearly meant to keep something safe. If there ain't some kind of treasure behind it, my name ain't Kid. Yep, that's the smell of cold hard cash, all right,
she muttered to herself as she began to inspect the door more closely. We go inside.
What am I, stupid? Of course it's bloody locked.
Kid had tried the door handle a few times before giving it a grumpy kick.
Bloody door's got a magic barrier on it, and the bloody barrier's got a barrier of its own to boot. It'll take more than me putting the boot in to get through all that.
I see. Then unless we find the key, we don't have a hope of getting inside.
Reckon I can handle a key hunt, especially if it's that idiot Lynx who's hidden it. If he can find his room, I'll sniff it out in 2 seconds flat. You just watch.
There was little more we could do here, so we decided to look elsewhere. The corridor ended at the foot of some stairs. With Kid in the lead, we headed upwards. It was dark, and the stairwell was narrow. We watched our footing carefully as we climbed. The stone of the steps was worn smooth with age, and I lost count of how many there were as we spiraled onward and upward. An awful sense of foreboding haunted me. I had no idea why, but it felt as though we were marching to the gallows. When we arrived at the top of the stairs, we were greeted by an old, heavy door looming in the silence. All was deathly silent, and the still, clammy air added to the sense of ominous apprehension. Something's very wrong here, I muttered without thinking. I hear cursed whispers from beyond the door, Miguel added, doing nothing to lift the mood.
Grow up, will you?
Kid shot back at us derisively. She was already examining the door.
Well, it ain't locked, and I don't hear anyone inside. Right, here goes.
Kid tried the handle. The door opened, and with a slow, heavy swing, revealed what lay beyond. It was a small, cylindrical room that appeared to be the inside of one of the stone towers. It was completely deserted, and there were no windows.
What's it supposed to be? Something about this place gives me the creeps.
Still standing in the doorway, Kid seemed suddenly taken aback.
There might be something in here. Let's take a close look.
There might be something in here. Let's take a closer look.
A closer look at the bloody empty room. Heh, might as well, I guess. We did climb all those stairs.
Kid stepped through the door, grumbling under her breath. Scanned the room and then noticed something on the floor. The flagstones were covered in dozens of narrow scratches, and in places there were thick black stains. Something in the stains spoke of a horror that no amount of scrubbing would ever wash away, a malice and a sadness beyond imagining. There's something written here. Crouching in front of a wall, McGill was inspecting some brownish markings that looked like more of the same stains. Someone's carved letters in the wall and...
Someone's carved letters in the wall and scrambled them using blood magic.
Kid had gone over to take a look.
Looks pretty old. Hard to read, too. Some of it's been worn away. Let's see. Cannot hold out much longer. My only hope now is to leave the Arcanian signet in this room. The Arcanian signet?
Suddenly, the door slammed shut. We jumped to our feet with a start. From above us, we heard an unsettling creaking sound. The walls and the floor began to tremble.
What the hell's going on?
Kid's eyes darted around the room and she desperately tried to figure out what was happening. The creaking sound from above continued, and the ceiling moved ominously closer. Up there!
We walked right into a bloody trap.
Kid bit her lip.
Gotta do something fast. We don't have time to sit and think about this.
Kid sprang at the door like an arrow, slamming into its shoulder first. It was far too heavy and our light frame bounced off it.
Damn it!
McGill raced towards the door like the wind, smashing into it with ferocious force. It made a creaking sound and shook from the impact, but stood firm. Desperately, I heard myself at it too. The shock of the impact rushed through my body, but it was no good. Meanwhile, the rusty creaking from above continued, as did the ceiling's inexorable journey downward. And to make matters worse, now countless blades were popping in and out.
Serge, Miguel, this is gonna take the three of us.
Timing our blows, we all charged the door at once. Once, twice, a third time, and then the door was open and we were collapsed in a heap in the corridor outside.
What?
Behind us we heard the sound of the bladed ceiling grinding on the stone floor of the tower room. The metallic scraping noises that made it awful. We could only lock on in silent horror at the fate so narrowly evaded. The machinery continued for a short while before slowly coming to a stop. It seemed the ceiling trap had finally finished its grisly work.
Bugger me! Talk about a nasty surprise.
Is it some sort of execution chamber? Is it some... I think that it doesn't say who's talking. Miguel continued, seeming to be deep in thought. In any case, that writing mentioned Arcia.
Yeah, what was all that about? I asked.
The Arcia Dragoons, the elite knightly order serving General Viper, who once governed the territory of Galesborough to the west. Former Knight Order, I should say. They were wiped out more than a decade ago by the lord of this very manor, no less.
Thanks for the history lesson, Mag.
Kid rose to her feet, pouting off the dust.
Too bad we're not here for fairy tale nights. Come on, we got a lot more exploring left to do.
Miguel shrugged silently, and we headed back to the stairs. With Kid in the lead, we headed downstairs. We went down the stairs and continued straight ahead, eventually coming across a sturdy-looking door on our right. The corridor continued further on, back toward the terrace. We continued down the corridor, eventually coming across a door to our left. The corridor continued on back toward the terrace. After a short walk down the corridor, the terrace came into view. We keep following. We took the corridor leading from the left-hand side of the terrace, eventually arriving at an intersection with some stairs. The path to the right led down the stairs. The path to the left was a dark side passage, and the main corridor continued straight on. We continued onward, past where the stairs and the side passage emerged into the main corridor. We found ourselves in front of some ornate double doors. Kid gently pushed the heavy doors open and peeked inside.
Doesn't look like anyone's in there.
It seemed to be the main hall of the manor. There was a massive table, beautiful decorations on the walls, and thick columns decorated with sculptures of birds and beasts. Fixed to the wall in the back towered a tremendous pipe organ, like a burnished black mountain. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. Several enormous portraits glowered down from high on the walls. Were these members of Lynx's family? I was busy staring at a painting depicting a young husband and wife, and I realized that their eyes had turned to look right at me. Okay, they hadn't. Don't worry, this isn't about to turn into some dumb ghost story. It just looked that way because of the flickering light of the candles reflected on the glossy oil paints. Obviously. Probably. This place gives me the creeps. And get a load of all those ugly mugs. There's nothing for us here. Let's look somewhere else. Neither Miguel nor I had any objections. We left the hall and returned to the corridor. Eventually it led us to an intersection. There were some stairs going down, and to the right a dark side passage. We kept going straight. We'd arrive back at the terrace. We headed down the side passage. At the end of it we came to an old, immaculately polished door. Kid gently pushed the door ajar and peeked into the room. The next thing I know, she slipped inside. Miguel and I followed.
Looks like a study.
The room was lit by the moonlight coming through the long, slender windows, slanting down in pale beams through the darkness. It was pretty big for a study, with an immaculate antique desk dominating the center. There were rows of bookshelves lined with thick, dusty old tomes. The walls for the rear of the room was decorated with paintings, and shelves of vases and painted plates stood before it. They all seemed to be curios from foreign lands. I went over to the desk and started searching the drawers. There, I found a neatly arranged set of pens, ink bottles, and other writing materials. Nothing of interest, in other words. A small portrait on the desk caught my eye. It was a picture of a young gal with a gentle smile on her lips. Who was she?
That's the girl Lynx adopted. You asked me, it wasn't 'cause he was looking to help the needy,
said Kid, peering over my shoulder. She wrinkled her nose into Stace.
Not even a looker.
Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a loud knock, but in the bottomless silence of the night, it might as well have been a thunderclap. Kid and I stood bolt upright and turned toward it. Miguel, meanwhile, hid in the shadows, drifting away like smoke. Panicked, I whispered to Kid. "Hide under the desk."
You what?
There was no time. I shoved Kid under the desk, then darted under it with her. More cramped than I thought it would be. I packed myself in as best I could, but Kid and I found ourselves in an awkward tangle of legs and arms. Slowly, the door opened. Flickering candlelight spread from the doorway with a warm glow. A shadowy figure appeared at the threshold. I tried to pack myself into the space under the desk just a little tighter, and still my breath. I looked down for a moment, and my heart skipped a beat. Kid's lips were right there. For a moment, everything else seemed to drift away. The pink bow of her mouth was so soft, so perfectly formed. Suddenly my heart was beating so loud I thought my chest would burst. I tore my eyes away and squeezed them tightly shut. But it seemed that whoever it was didn't mean to come in. They simply stood there.
Strange. I thought I heard something. But the lord of the manor is away. Of course. Why would there be anyone in here? I have to get over my nerves. Everything was fine until we heard the news that Porre was on the move.
The figure quietly closed the door, plunging the room back into darkness. The voice trailed off to a whisper. We remained motionless, keeping our ears pricked for any sign of an unwelcome return. All we heard were footsteps moving away. As I stayed hidden, listening for trouble, a thought began to cross my mind. Kid sure does smell nice.
Oi, Serge, gonna move your ass or what?
She whispered into my ear, her breath tickling as she spoke. Sorry. I rushed to my feet in a panic, smacking my head right into the top of the desk. Ow! Cradling my head in my hands, I crawled out from underneath. Oh, that stings. Kid followed right after and stood up, looking down at me on the floor.
Not your most heroic moment. You alright?
Yeah, I'll live. She took a look around the room.
No sign of that dirtbag Lynx. Lucky for him,
she snorted. So, Porre has made its move. Miguel emerged from the shadows, contemplating the news we'd overheard. Kid, if the rumors are true, we might well be about to find ourselves in a very difficult situation. This seemed to set her thinking too. Porre was a powerful nation that ruled the southern continent. I'd heard it was a prosperous land whose recent and sudden development had pushed it far ahead of its neighbours, which made me wonder, what would its inhabitants want here, out in their sticks? They couldn't be after the frozen flame too, could they? As valuable as it might be, a jewel was just a jewel in the grand scheme of things. I couldn't imagine it being an item of national interest. I mean, ultimately, it was just a pretty rock, right?
Let them do what they want. If everyone's busy playing soldier, they won't be bothering us. Come on, we got things to do.
She headed for the door. We left the room and made our way back down the side passage. Down the dark side passage leading from the study. Eventually we arrived back at the intersection. Some stairs led downward and the corridor branched left and right, with the right branch leading back toward the terrace. Slowly, we crept down the staircase, descending deeper into the blackness as we went. At the bottom, the path split. The way to the left continued on to an atrium that resembled a sort of plaza, while the path to the right was a winding passage that trailed off into the darkness. We went down the stairs, then took the passage to our right. Eventually, we came across an ornate door on the right-hand side. Something smelled fresh and pleasant. Flowers? Was it coming from inside? We found ourselves in a tidy, welcoming room. The knickknacks and curios dotted around the place seemed to be well loved. The stately desk and cozy-looking bed nearby, meanwhile, suggested the room's occupant was no stranger to luxury. Though the room was richly furnished, somehow it still felt awfully lonely. Kid took a quick look around before commenting.
It's Lynx's gal's room.
A half-written letter on the desk and a teacup, still warm, suggested that the lady of the manor was still nearby. It didn't seem that anyone was here now. We decided to search the room. Some charming flowers, a discarded cotton handkerchief, a small bottle of perfume. Nothing that meant much to me, nor anything that seemed particularly valuable. Kid seemed to have the same impression, and scanned the room clearly, not expecting to find anything. The only item of note was a small antique box which bore a crest resembling a viper. I decided where to look next. I picked up the small wooden box on the bookshelf. I gently opened the lid and was greeted by a soothing melody. A music box? There was something about that song.
I know this tune.
Kid was standing next to me, and I could see something had changed in her expression. You do, huh, Kid?
Someone used to sing it to me a long time ago.
She turned her gaze downward and went silent. Kid? Startled, she turned to me. Her eyelashes glistened as if wet with dew. She walked to the door, not saying a word. Hey, Kid, wait up! We left the room. Was she crying? Was Kid crying? Maybe I was just seeing things. The passage outside the room continued to our left and right. The path to the right led deeper into the darkness of the manor. Meanwhile, going left would take us to the atrium and another branch. We went down the dark passageway, eventually finding ourselves at a sturdy-looking, immaculately polished door. Kid sniffed at the air.
Just as I thought. Something stinks here. I reckon we found the beast's lair, Kit, lads.
In the darkness, Kid's lips twisted into a grin that turned blood cold. Kid opened the door and slipped inside. It was Lynx's room, but he didn't seem to be around.
The bugger's gone and scarpered because he heard I was coming.
There was something deeply unpleasant about the room. There wasn't anything unusual about the furniture and fittings. Not how they looked or how they were made, but taken as a whole, it all felt discordant. Was this a reflection of Lynx, a seemingly ordinary facade that hid a disturbing truth only some could see? Alright, I'll bet we'll find the key to the vault in here, or a clue about where to find it. I started searching through the room. The desk drawers, the paintings on the walls, the vase on top of the side table. I left no stone unturned. There didn't seem to be anything suspicious. But as I scanned the room, something unusual caught my eye. There was a pedestal in one corner with a significant-looking scarlet cloth drawn over it. I slowly raised my hand toward it. Carefully pulled the cloth away, revealing a mirror. It was old-fashioned, and of an elaborately decorated style I'd seen before, and in it was reflected a statue of Venus. Suddenly, the eyes of the statue shone with light.
What is your desire?
The mirror is speaking? Kid and Miguel ran to my side. There's no need for panic. It's a whispering mirror, nothing more, said Miguel flatly.
What's one of those?
A magic mirror in which a spirit dwells. The spirit can freely move between its own and other mirrors, and will share its wisdoms with those who ask. Interesting. What should I ask it? you know where the key to the vault is? The mirror's reflection rippled and changed to reveal a room with numerous bookshelves. A deep, ceremonious voice spoke. You will find the key in the place I have revealed, the study. It is inside a book with a purple cover, in the furthest bookshelf from the door. The image of the study vanished in the mirror, and the voice went silent. It appears the spirit has left for another mirror, commented Miguel. For the study, then. As I made to leave the room, a low voice rumbled through the air, stopping me dead in my tracks. Beware, he knows. Was it the voice of the mirror again? What did it mean?
Hurry up, we're leaving you behind, Serge,
called Kid from outside. Flustered, I rushed after her. The corridor stretched out beyond the door. We retraced our steps. Eventually we came across an ornate door on the left side. It was Riddle's room, Lynx's daughter. We continued down the corridor until we reached an intersection. There was a left turn in the corridor leading to some stairs going upwards. The corridor also continued straight on toward the entrance to a large plaza-like atrium. The passage to the stairway was short. With Kid leading the way, we started to climb the narrow staircase. At the top we found another intersection. Taking the corridor to the right would lead us to a dead end with a large door, while the way to the left led to the terrace. The narrow side passage in front of us was open. Fuck, was it forward through the corridor or... Oh, it says the study. We headed down the side passage. At the end of it, we came to an old, immaculately polished door. This was the study.
Right, let's find this key.
Light on her feet as always. Kid moved into the center of the room.
Where'd the mirror say it was again, Serge?
She was asking me? How was I supposed to remember? That from the far bookcase? Hey, I think it was supposed to be the one with the purple cover in the furthest bookcase.
Alright, let's see.
Seemed to take my word for it. Kid made for the case in question.
Right, this one. Purple cover. This has got to be it.
Kid pulled out a book from the bottom shelf. Miguel and I watched as she opened it. The pages were hollowed out, and inside was an old key decorated with strange symbols.
Nailed it. Nice one, Serge.
Kid snatched the key from inside the book.
Right, time to finally get a look at this treasure.
Having got what we came for, we left the study. We made our way back down the dark side passage leading from the study. Eventually we arrived back at the intersection. Stairs led downward, and the corridor branched left and right, with the right branch leading back towards the terrace. After a short walk down the corridor, the terrace came into view. A short walk along the corridor running from the right-hand side of the terrace, we found an ancient-looking door again on our right. It looked like this was the way into the clock tower. We returned to creeping down the darkened hallways as we stayed as silent as we could. Continuing on down the corridor, we came across a rather sturdy-looking door on our left. A little further on stood a stairway leading upwards.
Well, this door's clearly meant to keep something safe. If there ain't some kind of treasure behind it, my name ain't Kid. Yep, that's the smell of cold hard cash, all right, she muttered to herself as she began to inspect the door more closely. This should do it.
Kid slipped the key we'd found into the lock. Lines of magical light flashed across the surface of the door, and vanished as various magical barriers were dispelled. Up, down, left, right, blue, red, green, every colour under the sun, and then all was quiet, and the darkness of the manor returned. Right, we're in. With a creak, the heavy door gently swung open. As soon as I saw what was inside, I gave a gasp. Kid stepped inside.
Whoa, we've hit the mother lode.
Out of the darkness loomed a veritable mountain of gold, silver, priceless works of art, and exquisite trinkets. Kid looked as if she were on the verge of drooling at the sight of it all. But what thief wouldn't have been? After all, this was the kind of hoard that few people would ever come across in their lifetime. The smallest fraction of this vast mound of riches would have seen even the most careless spendthrifts set for life. Our goal is the frozen flame. Ignore the rest. Miguel spoke with an icy dedication to our mission. He had not even batted an eyelid at the sight of it that greeted us.
Yeah, I know.
She was disappointed, of course, but she soon set about scanning the room for the object of our hunt. Wait, is that... Look on the pedestal over there.
There. Wait, is that it? Look on the pedestal over there.
I turned to see what Kid was pointing at. There it was. A small yet perfectly formed jewel that gave off a pale red light. A jewel that looked like a flickering flame suspended in time. A frozen flame. Silently, the girl walked toward the pedestal. I called out, "Wait, we have to be careful." "You're right. This is Lynx we're dealing with after all. May very well be trapped. We should be on our guard."
We need to be quick about this. But fine, have it your way,
grumbled Kid, looking away. Miguel examined the pedestal for a short while and paused. We were wise to be cautious. Placing his left hand on the base of the pedestal, he muttered an incantation, drawing quick sigils in the air with his right hand. Some glyphs appeared on its smooth surface, and for a moment blazed brightly. There, now we can proceed. Miguel calmly reached out and grabbed hold of the red jewel. Da-da-da-da! Serge and his friends obtained the frozen flame. Phew, we managed to get what we came for without anything horrible happening to us. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned again to Miguel. He was staring silently at the jewel in his hands. Miguel, we did it! Let's get out of... Before I could finish, the frozen frame crumbled to dust. This flame was a fake. Lynx must be keeping the real one somewhere safe. What? Suddenly, a siren rang out. The room was flooded with light, and metal bars slammed down in front of the door. I turned with a gasp to see Kid frozen, an ornate crown in her hands, and a wide-eyed look of awkward shock on her face. Dun-dun-dun! Kid and friends obtained a golden crown too. You're kidding me, right? You had to go and... You complete bonehead! I let rip with a stream of choice insults. In my head, that is. Metallic parrots in the four corners of the room suddenly came to life, flapping their wings and screeching, "Roar! Thieves! Thieves!" We're in trouble. These things are going nowhere. We're in trouble. These things are going nowhere, said Miguel, inspecting the bars covering the door. Although, to look at him, you wouldn't have thought there was anything wrong. Which way? Which way?
Which way? Which way? The barracks! The barracks! To the vaults! To the vaults!
We heard voices in the distance. The men of guards were coming. Kid died behind a pile of coins.
Find somewhere to hide!
In a panic, I looked around the room. There was a large chest sitting wide open next to a pillar. I rushed to empty it out, then plunged headfirst in and closed the lid. Captain! Captain! There's no sign of anyone in there. No sign. Strange. Peculiar. No one has ever escaped before. None have even fled the mousetrap's clutches. None. I gently pushed up the lid of the chest and peeked through the gap. There were 5 goblins wearing suits of armour, unlocking the gate and about to make their way inside. One of the goblins looked around the room, jerking his neck as he peered into the shadows. Captain, what if it actually was a mouse this time? Chef was grumbling about the mouses the other day, Captain. A mouse, a rodent, a rat. Would a teeny tiny thing like that really have sprung the trap? Replied a stocky, plump-looking goblin, who must have been the captain. He didn't seem convinced. That was when I heard a strange but oddly familiar sound from a corner of the room. Squeak! Squeak! It's coming from where Kid was hiding. Startled, the troop of goblins stopped and looked at each other. For a moment, none of them spoke. Eventually, the goblin captain rubbed his chin through his jowls and offered his thoughts. Mouses. I'm sure Chef was complaining about cats. Meow. Meow. That voice again. Again, silence. The goblins looked at each other. Funny you should say that, Captain. Why, I heard it. It weren't mouses or cats. It was a heckran. An awkward silence followed. In my mind's eye, I could see Kid racking her brains to work out what a heckran was. I smell a rat, by which I mean a thief. Following the captain's lead, the guards reached for their weapons and then... Heck! Heck, heck! Heck, heck, heck! Heck, heck, heck! Run, run, heck, run! Listen, it really is a heck run, by heck. That proves it. The goblin guards grinned and nodded to each other. Cheeky little devil surprised me there. Let's get out of here, boys. The goblins filed out of the vault. I breathed a sigh of relief. And then they came charging back in again with a mighty roar. There's no such thing as hackerans. What? You sneaky little buggers! Roared Kid, leaping out from behind a pile of gold coins. You're one to talk, thief. Brandishing their weapons menacingly, the goblins moved slowly forward, forcing Kid into a corner. I quietly eased open the lid of the coffin and slipped out. Can't leave you anywhere, can I? Muttered to myself. I knew Kid could handle herself, but I didn't fancy her odds against a whole troop of heavily armed goblins. For a moment, I wasn't sure what to do, but then I made up my mind. Right, I had to save Kid. There was no way I was going to abandon a friend in need. Even if it meant facing off against a group of 5 goblin guards, I'd find a way to come out on top, I hoped. I drew the knife from my belt and leapt into the middle of the room. Hey, snot for brains! Over here! The goblins all turned to look at me at the same time. 10 beady, cruel little eyes all staring daggers at me. We're all in a hurry to die, are we? I gulped and wondered if making a run for it might have been a better plan of action after all. Humans are so stupid. The goblin captain chuckled and licked his teeth. Yep, this one's got a death wish all right. Why else would he be so stupid as to come after Lord Lynx's treasure? That's the first. Being called a dummy by a bloody goblin. Try acting tough when you're crying to your mum later on. That's the first. Being called dumb by a bloody goblin. Try acting tough when you're crying to your mum later on. Judging by Kid's response, she wasn't feeling massively frightened. And you tell her it was Kid who kicked your teeth in. So you're Kid, are you? Sneaky little slippery little thief we heard so much about. The goblin narrowed his eyes. Lord Lynx will be thanking me from now until my retirement when I bring him your head on a silver platter. The goblin captain pulled his morning star from his waist and started swinging. You don't know who you're messing with. We ain't no ordinary goblins, sweetheart. We're Lord Lynx's elite guard. The goblins that gobble other goblins. That's right, the Gob Squad.
I'll quit shooting your mouth off and let me stick a boot in it.
And with that, Kid launched into a lightning-fast spinning kick. The boot connected with the side of the goblin's head, with a crack, sending the creature tumbling to the ground. Get him, lads. The boy looks scrawny. Stop with him. The goblin captain spun the heavy metal ball onto his morning star in the air. Glorious Gob Strike! Aye, aye! Goblins charged across the room in response to their captain's command. Gob Strike incoming. Goblin rushed towards me, swinging his weapon overhead. I swiftly dodged the attack. The morning star brushed past my cheek. I don't know how, but I managed to escape unscathed. I lost my balance though and fell clumsily to the floor. Miguel conjured up a black wind which surged forth like a shearing tempest. How does a human know a spell like that? Who are you? The goblin was quickly silenced as the rushing winds tore through it, and it collapsed to the floor with a final shriek. Miguel looked down at his victim, his expression unchanged. Another goblin flew down from overhead. Bombs away! With a growl that sent its morning star swinging from above. I rolled across the floor, dodging the attack, but I wasn't fast enough and the iron ball crashed straight into my back. I let out a howl as the force of the impact shuddered through my body. I'd never felt such raw pain in my entire life. I rolled around the floor in agony. Dart for me, boy! Let me hear you sing. As I crawled on the floor, the shadow of the goblin towered over me like a black mountain. Die, brat! Its lip curled around its fangs in a leering grin, and it raised its weapon over its head.
Oh no you don't, you have to go for me first.
No. Miguel conjured up a black wind which surged forth like a searing tempest. Yep. I'll spell my way. Goblin silence went to a firm, final shriek. Why is it repeating? My head was spinning, but I managed to take the opportunity to race to my feet. Gob Strike incoming! Goblin rushed towards me, swinging its weapon overhead. I just about managed to push my enemy's attack aside and tried to strike back with my knife, landing a heavy blow right in the goblin's unguarded flank. The goblin's face crumpled in agony. Miguel conjured up a black wind which surged forth like a searing tempest. How does a human know that spell? Who are you? Goblin was quickly silenced, torn from the wind's final shriek. Miguel let the victim unchanged. Then another goblin dummy flew down from overhead with a growl, small star swinging from above. It was better off attacking than trying for a clumsy dodge. I tackled the goblin head on and bounced helplessly off its enormous rock-like body, smashing headfirst into the floor. The shock of the impact jolted through my body. I just about managed to push my enemy's attack aside and tried to strike back with my knife, only for the goblin to knock away my attack with a flick of its brawny arm and send me crashing to the ground. The shock sent a flash of bright white light singeing through my head. Kid lashed out with a lightning-fast click.
There's more where that came from.
Raise up mercy! The stricken goblin had collapsed to the floor, its eyes wide with fear.
This isn't a game, Sarge. Watch yourself, will you?
Long live Lord Lynx! Glory to the Gob Squad! In these final words, the goblin collapsed. That was the last of them. He made it.
Huh, piece of cake,
said Kid, putting a brave face on things as she wiped the sweat from her brow with her arm. And then she stopped and looked at me.
Sarge, what were you thinking, you great drongo? Getting the goblins to come after you like that? You really didn't have to, you know. Still, thanks. Can't say I wasn't happy to see your crazy ass jumping in like that.
She was actually smiling at me. Kid's smile kindled a light inside me, and with it a peculiar warmth that came in ripples. And then Miguel stepped in. Save the chatter for later. We can't waste any more time here. The frozen flame must be somewhere else in the manor.
Alright, mate. Thanks for stating the obvious. It's not my bloody fault that Lynx has to make things so bloody difficult for everyone.
Kid spun on her heels and made a sulky about face for the door. Suddenly, her attention returned to the pile of defeated goblins.
This bunch of Drongos said that Lynx is elite guard, right? But they got some nice loot on them.
With that, she started unceremoniously rummaging through the fallen captain's pockets. She was like a hyena, sniffing for scraps.
Hello, what's this?
She'd found an odd metal plate. It resembled an open hand and was covered in runes.
Reckon this might open some other magic door somewhere. Well, never know when it might come in handy either. Either way, finders keepers.
The plate vanished into Kid's pocket.
Looks like there's nothing else worth taking, unless you count pockets, linen and bits of string.
She rose to her feet and looked around the room.
You know, it's a real shame to leave the rest of all this loot just sitting here unloved. Suppose we can come back for it whenever.
Kid turned to face us and flashed a grin.
Alright, lads, get a move on. It ain't gonna be dark forever.
That hand-shaped plate is our only clue for now, muttered Miguel, seemingly to himself. And with that, we left the vault in search of the real frozen flame. I won't read the bits I've already read before. Anyway, we went toward the atrium on the left. Kid poked her head through the arch-shaped door and took a look around.
It's big in here. Must be some kind of hall.
We took a cautious look around, then entered one after the another. The atrium was a beautiful plaza, complete with a statue that doubled as a fountain. Pillars and arches lined the walls, and in the centre was a small pool of clear water, above which the statue stood. On the other side of the room I could see another arched entrance, like the one we had come through.
Oh, that's cold.
Kid was scooping up water from the fountain. I went over to her and, resting my hand on the edge of the marble basin, peered into the pool beneath. Shadows flickered under the water's surface.
You reckon those fish are rare? As invaluable?
Kid leaned right over the edge. I couldn't see the bottom. I wondered how deep it was. The shadow of one of the fish grew larger and larger.
Whoa!
Sensing danger, Kid leapt back from the edge. Clack! A fish leapt out from the water and snapped at her, its jaws bristling with razor-sharp teeth. Its mouth closed shut on the air where she'd been only moments before, and with a splash the fish darted back under the water. Pteranodons. Deadly carnivorous fish with razor-sharp teeth and powerful jaws that could snap a monster's horn in half. Staring in horror, I watched as dark shadows began to gather in what little of the pool I could make out. The pteranodons must have detected prey. Soon the room was filled with the sound of splashing and snapping as the fish teemed at the water's surface.
Bloody hell!
Even Kid was uneasy. She took another step back. How many pteranodons were in the pool? The thought of what would happen if they all leapt clear of the water and attacked at once crossed my mind. A bead of cold sweat rolled down my forehead. Suddenly, the water coming from the statue turned crimson and shot out in a powerful jet that nearly touched the ceiling. Kid jumped back. I just stood in shock, watching the torrent of water erupting from the statue. Scarlet waters continued to gush out from the fountain. The pool grew redder and redder and started to overflow. We looked on, entranced, but the spell was soon broken when we realized that the water was starting to flow faster and faster over the rim of the basin. The pteranodons began to jump and snap at the water's surface with a bloodthirsty glee. I was brought to my senses by the dull slapping sound of pteranodons hitting the floor. Give me time for fucking chews. Ugh! The bolt of pain shot up my calf and I came close to fainting. I stood my ground as best I could, flicking away the pteranodon that had bitten me. But soon a horrible ring of shadows began to circle the water around me. I was surrounded. What was I going to do? Quickly, there's an exit on the other side. I pointed at the doorway opposite where we came in. Tried my hardest to rush across the red pool, sending up great gouts of crimson water, but it was as thick as blood, and I found myself struggling to move. I felt a sharp jab of searing pain as countless pteranodons snapped at my legs. Kid gritted her teeth in pain.
Serge, we gotta do something before we get turned into mincemeat. What, you want to try to pick this lot off one by one?
Kid glared back at me, her face a picture of exasperated disbelief.
Don't be a bloody idiot, Serge. You wanna die here?
While I stood there, my mouth agape, a pteranodon sunk its teeth into my foot. A jolt of pain surged up my leg, making me jump. What was I going to do? You have to get to the other side. Desperately tried to wade through the exit, or the exit opposite us. The water was already up to my waist. A strange smell like warm meat rose from the water's surface. Ugh. I yelped as my left thigh and my right ankle simultaneously erupted with pain. I lost my footing and crashed face first into the water. A red haze drifted down to fill my eyes, and a swarm of hungry pteranodons all piled in at once. Kid's screams grew more and more distant as my consciousness plummeted into the bottomless darkness. And that was how I died. Let me restart from there, can it? No, that would be fucking sensible. Shoot. It's annoying. Should have saved more. See, this is why you should save often. Because now I know it fucking well just outright kills you. I was kind of hoping it would let me just... go back to where I was before, but... Gonna take a good minute, isn't it? Locked door. I want to retrace my steps at least to where I was, so... Stairs, we're gonna have the trap room up the top. I'm gonna save it after I've done the room. Wait, no. I said wall, not door, didn't I? Oh, I'm an idiot. If we're trying to go through it quickly. Right. Took the side passage. Check the desk. I really should have saved. Next I went downstairs. And I went to Ridley's room. Messed with the music box. Hey. I got 10 fucking minutes of retracing my steps. Terrible. My own fault. I should have saved. Right. Wait, what? Suddenly the darkness fell apart. Something like a quick haze floated me in front of us and took form, like someone blowing smoke into a person-shaped bottle. It was robed in a rugged shroud, and its sunken eyes glinted menacingly. It was the burning hatred that lingers even after death given form, a being driven by a hatred for all living things. Ghost! Bugger! That's us out, said Bitterlift. There wasn't anything she or I could do to deal with an enemy that had no physical body. A voice boomed out behind me. Miguel had begun casting a spell. It was useless, but I drew my breath. Ghost took advantage of my rear to draw near. Rather its body, could you call it a body, expanded, consuming me entirely. Before the ghost, where its face seemed to be, had more substance than the rest of it. And I didn't just slip through it like I thought I would. I oozed through it like I was stuck in some kind of goo. Yes, it was disgusting. More disgusting than anything I'd ever known. And it was impossibly cold. I felt like it was draining all the heat right out of my body. Like it was draining my life force itself, in fact. If you give me time to read the fucking choices and choose one. Ugh. I would debate me, but I could find no purchase in the gooey ectoplasm. Pierce and chill became all the more bitter, so much so that I didn't even know what cold meant anymore. I could vaguely make out Kid and Miguel through the ghost body. What were they doing? Things were looking pretty bad for me. Serge, when I say... Serge, when I say kid, what are the first words that come to mind? Asked Miguel. Suddenly snapped out the haze. What are you... It was no good. I was trying to find out what on earth Miguel was on about. I couldn't even move my mouth to form the words anymore. I feel the life draining out of me with an almost audible sigh. My consciousness became more and more hazy. I wonder how things are back home. Serge, what would a washing woman wish for? The other come out with another strange question. Wishy wish? What are you, bloody 4 years old? Kid sighed with disgust. Whatever Miguel was planning, I hoped it was going to be worth it. Pierce and chill became all the more bitter, so much so that I didn't even know what cold meant anymore. Yeah, what are you doing? It's pretty bad for me. So, when I say kid, what is the first word that come to your mind? Evading my assistance. Smash! Kid's foot came crashing through the ghost without hint of ectoplasmic resistance, hitting me squarely in the back of the head. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Serge! Well, someone was still themselves at least. I felt the life draining at me, not unconscious and easy. Things were back home, this is annoying. Washing, not again, but... I wish I actually had time to read these things.
You bloody... I'll thank you not to go counting my undies, you filthy perv.
And then I'll thank you to stop making me wash them every week. Maybe when we get out of this mess, you do our own laundry for once. Listen, she'll be all the more better, so much so that I didn't even know what cold meant anymore. I didn't really get what Kid and Miguel thought the ghost had. They were doing things look pretty bad for me. Just then, something surged into my consciousness. Words of power filled my mind with an almost physical force. It was McGill. He was using my mind as a conduit to attack the ghost on the astral plane. In an explosion of energy, unutterable, unpronounceable words of power filled my surroundings and blasted away the cold haze. My head felt like it was going to boil from the blazing heat that surged through it.
Serge? Oi, Serge! You still with us, mate?
Someone was slapping me around the face. Someone who seemed to be enjoying it immensely. Kid, stop it, damn you! Leapt to my feet, wide awake in an instant. Again in an instant.
Meg, did you really have to use me like that?
When dealing with foes who attack the mind, it is simplest to lure them in with bait, and use their intended prey's consciousness as a conduit in order to make an assault from the astral plane. A direct magic attack would have meant a lengthy battle, a far less elegant solution, he replied without a trace of guilt. All right, let's keep moving.
All right, let's keep moving.
Kid gave the order to continue, seemingly completely oblivious to my brush with death. He'd taken a few knocks, but I was all right. A scrape or two wouldn't stop me. Well, that was another fine bloody mess.
What do we even bring you here for? Bring you for, Serge?
Kid's cold stare pierced through me like a javelin made of ice. Should never even run into the damn ghost anyway. Oh, for fuck's sake. Purple far. Hey. Again? Really? Where's that Kid and Miguel's, and without a word being exchanged between us, a plan was hatched. They had both already seen an opening. Miguel quickly lobbed a spell at the ghost to distract it, and they slipped away while its attention was elsewhere. Sorely underestimated it, as if anticipating our movements, the ghost suddenly swelled in size, trapping us completely within its spectral embrace. The core of the ghost, where its face seemed to be, and raw substance in the rest of it. And I didn't just slip through it like I thought I would. Ghost. I can fucking find around to do this. Miguel casting a spell for me. Can the ghost finally be permanently gone now? like sick and tired of it already. It shouldn't fucking show up all that goddamn way without having to deal with it the first fucking time through. Oh, wait a second. What's that? There was a leather bag on the ground containing a sparkling gem. Now we're talking. Kid's face lit up with joy.
Nice find, Serge. What a beaut.
Kid snatched it away, leaving me to settle for the compliment. I was starting to feel a little worse for wear. I was going to have to be more careful from now on, or this was going to end badly.
Maybe you ain't such a drongo after all. Just goes to show. Any old weirdo can make something of themselves if they put their mind to it.
Kid's eyes glinted with mischief. Right, I'm going to save here, because this is getting annoying. Right, do this again quickly. Being careful, even though it's a trap. Kid sets off the alarm. Also see if I can do this fight better this time. Mm-hmm. So I have to do it more carefully this time since I'm so fucking damaged from all those ghosts attack. Dodge. Counter. Santa. Fucking really. Jesus Christ. I don't give a shit. Fucking get through it. It's starting to piss me off. Come on. Really starting to get on my nerves. Really starting to get on my nerves. I wonder if it's random each time. I really wish I had not died in that fucking bloody run or whatever pool. It's fucking horrible having to go back this far. Oh well, at least it's given my voice a chance to rest. Not that it's really needed. Considering I can read most of this in my own goddamn voice. Play it safe. Yes, it's fucking random. Wonderful. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Survive. Okay. Main hall? That's where the thing is. Ah, again, really. I may have been again up against a being from a willpower so strong that it created monster, but this thing never had to put up with being mercilessly whipped into a kid every day of its life. It is otherworldly chill, so called. Suddenly I wasn't sure I was going to make it. That'll do, Serge. Good on you. Just as I was beginning to succumb to the cold, to the despair, Kid's voice cut through the numbness. Somehow I was still standing. And then Kid flew past me, a knife gleaming in the darkness. Miguel had finished casting a spell of banishment, and I was keeping the ghost busy. So Kid catch the blue current of magic energy with her blade, and send it crashing into the ghost forehead. Did I make it? My body slackened as relief washed over me. Serge! Oi, Serge! You still with us? Someone was slapping me on the cheek. Whoever it was, they seemed to be enjoying it. Yeah. I gotta hand it to you, though. You showed some guts there. Here's your reward. And then she spun on her heels and stood there next to Miguel as if nothing had happened. Slowly I rose to my feet, not quite believing what she had just done. I could still feel her lips on my forehead. I was a mess. My body was screaming with pain and I felt like I might pass out at any moment. If I took much more punishment from Lynx's minions, my night was going to be over pretty soon. If you'd stop fucking sending ghosts. stupid, having random fucking battles and damaging you each fucking time. Right, atrium, big hall. Plaza thing. Kid, let's get out of here. In a panic, we splash through the water back to the corridor we came from. Things around on snapping as our legs, hearing pain, and the aberration, breathing heavily, found myself in the corridor outside. That was a close call. So that thing was a trap, eh? Talk about twisted. Lynx is even more of a sick bastard than I thought. I was about to say he wouldn't have to be if I didn't have the guard against people like her breaking into his own, but I thought the better of it.
Well, at any rate, I think we can consider that a dead end. Let's go back.
Defeated, we left the atrium. Something caused Kid to stop in her tracks.
Hello, hello. What do we have here?
She pointed to the side of the entranceway to the hall. Found myself face to face with a sculpture of an old man's face with a truly phenomenal beard. The sculpture's eyes seemed to gleam with life. For a piece of marble, it seemed almost too realistic. It's a mouth of truth, announced Miguel. An enchanted statue that can tell when you're lying. If it catches you out, it'll bite your hand off. Miguel kept his explanation simple so that Kid wouldn't drift off before he got to the important part. I'm gonna save.
Huh? So what's it doing here then?
I suspect it's part of a greater mechanism.
Stick your hand in its gob, do you? Righto, let's see what happens, shall we?
With a mischievous glint in her eyes, Kid darted over and stuck her hand in the mouth without a moment's hesitation. She stood there for a moment waiting, but it didn't take long for her to get bored.
Huh? Nothing.
Suddenly I had an idea. Hey Kid, who's the greatest thief who ever lived?
Huh? Me, of course, you drongo.
Kid answered without a moment's hesitation, and then suddenly her face twisted with pain. The tube of the marble sculpture had clamped down on her hand.
It bit me,
she cried.
Knock it off. Everyone knows it's a Ow!
The sculpture bit her again as soon as she spoke.
You little...
A cold sweat formed on Kid's forehead. The sculpture was tightening its grip. It won't let go until you say something true. Despite the obvious urgency of the situation, Miguel was matter-of-fact as ever. Just say anything, Kid, as long as it's the truth. Obviously, Kid wasn't listening. Instead, she just kicked awkwardly at the statue.
Oi, Betty, let go of my bloody hand.
She planted her feet either side of its mouth and tried her hardest to pull herself out. She heaved, kicked and stamped, grunted and strained. And then, finally, her hand popped free. I was taken aback by what I'd just witnessed and couldn't say a word. See? Told you it was the truth.
See? Told you it was the truth.
Kid raised her hand in the air triumphantly. As if to demonstrate, I could see heavy bite marks. The sculpture hadn't come away from the struggle unscathed either. Kid's attempt to break free had left it cracked in several places. Miguel pointed silently at part of it. I went to take a close look and saw a pale, flesh-coloured tongue. I expect we're to put something there, commented Miguel. Something? What exactly? I replied. Kid stood there for a moment, lost in thought, and then she started to unload all the knick-knacks she'd been carrying. It was a strange collection of odds and ends, pulled out from her pockets, her boots, and even from her braid.
All right, Serge, now it's your turn to have a go at that stupid statue.
Kid grinned at me, holding her assortment of knickknacks out on the palm of both hands. I guess she decided that whatever further horrors the statue had in store, she'd rather not face them herself. Nice kid, real nice. Grumbling to myself, I reached out to pick an item. I chose hand-shaped plate. I took the hand-shaped metal plate we'd found. After taking another look at the runes, I was no closer to working out what they might mean. Here goes nothing. Stuck the plate into the mouth of Truth's marble maw. As soon as I did so, its eyes rolled upward and the wall gave a light judder. A low rumbling sound came from the sculpture's mouth. This indeed is the ultimate truth of the universe.
Did you hear something? Yeah.
I watched the mouth of Truth in confusion. Its great marble tongue lolled out, almost like a snake. It coiled around the plate, seizing it and pulling it deep inside. What's going on? In a panic, I looked to Miguel for answers. Seems this ineffable truth of the universe has left even the mouth of Truth tongue-tied. Miguel answered in his usual deadpan manner. I think he might even have been trying to make a joke. Hang on, so that plate thingy revealed the truth of the universe?
And you went and crammed it down Beardy's gullet? Did you realize how much we could have sold that for?
Kid kicked the floor in frustration and snapped her fingers. And then drains on all sides of the room suddenly opened wide. The red water formed eddies as it sank away. Helpless, the pyrannodons were washed away with the current. Soon only trickles of water were left, slowly dripping away.
Well, that's a stroke of luck, ain't it? Guess we won't be sleeping with the fishes tonight,
grinned Kid, looking at the empty pool. We crossed the drained room, making for the exit on the other side, and pressed on. We went through the atrium and continued down the corridor before finding ourselves at a fork in the road. The corridor stretched off to the left and right. We continued down the corridor, eventually reaching an odd, rather sturdy-looking door. And old.
Bloody marvellous. Another bloody door with a bloody magical barrier on it. Wonder what's inside. My sixth sense tells me it ain't treasure.
Kid whispers back to us as she examined the door. I suspect that this is the Manor's dungeon, replied Miguel, his eyes closed in concentration. I can hear the sound of someone moaning in the darkness on the other side. But there is nothing we can do, and thus it is of little concern to us now. Let us turn back. No way of getting through the door, we retraced our steps down the corridor. Continued straight on. We continued down the dark, dank corridor until some stairs leading downward finally came into view. Slowly, we crept down the staircase, descending deeper into the shadows as we went. At the bottom we found ourselves at another intersection. The dim, narrow passageway branched left and right. We followed the corridor for a while before coming across a small door.
Get a whiff of that. Something smells good, whispered Kif, sniffing the air.
Save first. We opened the door.
Blimesy, this is a small kitchen.
Must be for the servants, commented Miguel. I scanned our surroundings. A basin for washing dishes, cooking utensils, some food made ready for tomorrow, and a mouse trap. It looked like any other commoner's kitchen. Kid walked over to a large pot filled with soup, food, and peered inside.
Looks like tomorrow's lunch. Want to try some, Serge?
Timidly, I peered into the pot. It looked like stew, and it didn't smell bad at all, almost inviting. I scooped some up with a ladle and brought it to my mouth. Oh. It was delicious. This stuff's delicious. You should grab a bowl, Kid, I urged between bites. Kid was looking at me again, staring at me intently, in fact, like she was searching for something.
Well, you ain't going green or nothing. Guess it's safe. All right, let's have a try.
She licked her lips with anticipation and swiped my spoon right out of my hand.
Fancy a taste, Mag?
No. Kid grabbed a bowl from nearby and began spooning out more. I did the same. We ate our fill. The stew was still warm, and it felt as though the magic of fresh home cooking was easing my wound somewhat. Suddenly, a low voice rang out.
You there, the young man with the braid.
Kid froze.
Oi, who you calling a bloke?
Kid barked angrily in the direction the voice was coming from. A mouse was looking at us with eyes like saucers, from the inside of a mousetrap, hanging from the wall in the corner of the room.
Oh, I am sorry. You're a young lady. I see.
The mouse bowed its head in apology.
Please, kind young lady, you must hear me out.
The mouse put its paws together and started pleading at Kid.
I left the nest to find food for my mother, but as you can see, I managed to get myself caught in a trap. You leave me here, I will surely be eaten by goblins.
Kid eyed the little creature suspiciously. Eaten by goblins? Wait, that's stew. Putting two and two together, Kid ran for the sink.
I beg of you, please free me from this trap. My mother is sick, and she will be terribly worried about what has become of me.
The mouse was clearly begging for its life, but there was also an odd little glint in its eye. Meanwhile, Kid was at the sink. I'm never going to get that taste out of my mouth.
I'll be buggered if I'm hanging around here any longer.
Kid had returned from the sink, only to stamp off toward the door. She was looking very green around the gills.
Kindly, young lady, I don't suppose you could free me first? You got yourself into this mess. You can sort it out yourself.
Kid all but spat on the ground as she left the room. The mouse's eyes welled up as it looked to me.
Young man, please, you're my only hope.
Fine. Unable to bear it staring at me anymore with those pleading eyes, I lifted down the cage and opened the door. The mouse bounded happily out from inside. The mouse gave a wicked chuckle.
You poor naive fool.
Suddenly its body began to bloom massively in size.
Oi, Serge, what are you doing?
Kid stopped in horror the moment she opened the door.
Bugger me, a griffin.
The enormous creature stared balefully down on us.
Idiot humans. My mother is not sick, but yours will be when she sees what I've done to you. Good going, Serge. You're a bloody liability, you are.
Okay, maybe I made a mistake, but she didn't have to rub it in like that. The griffin gave a mighty cry and leapt right at us. Its razor-sharp tongue sliced through the air, raking down towards me. Caught off guard, I tried my best to dodge the attack, but the blow never came as the griffin suddenly lost its balance and came crashing to the ground.
Oh, bother. I'm too hungry to even fight properly. On earth?
I breathed a sigh of relief, running a hand down my chest.
All right, little mouse. Now it's time for the real show to begin.
Kid walked up to the griffin, cracking her knuckles.
Please, kindly young lady, this is all a misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding.
Panicking, the creature leapt to its feet.
You can't kill me. I have useful information. If you let me go, I promise I'll tell you everything I know. Everything. Yeah, I know how much a promise from the likes of you is worth.
Kid took another step towards the griffin, not skipping a beat.
No, but please.
Kid kept on coming. The griffin kept on shrieking away. Enough. McGill called for Kid to stop. Let's hear it.
Oh, thank you, kind sir.
The griffin was beside itself with relief.
Spoil my fun, why don't you?
Grumbled Kid, pouting as she turned away.
Listen well, merciful saviour. Right twice,
I'm going to need to write this down. Right twice. Left thrice.
Right twice. Should you find yourself trapped in one of Link's swirling snares, remember my words.
With that, the griffin returned to its mouse-like form and disappeared into a small hole in the wall.
Trapped in Link's snares? Huh! As if I'd be thick enough to walk into one of his traps. Let's get out of here. We've wasted enough time already.
Kid turned on a heel and made for the door. We left the kitchen. Leaving the room behind us, we took a right down the corridor. We followed it for a while before coming to an intersection. The way to the left ended at a staircase going up. The corridor also continued directly ahead, but the way was completely enshrouded in darkness. We continued on down the corridor until it ended at a large door covered in scratches and other odd marks. Above the door was a wooden plate. It bore the legend "Guard Room" in elaborate calligraphy.
Well, reckon this might be where to find the key to that door upstairs. No getting past that bloody magic barrier without it.
Kid pressed an ear against the door and listened carefully.
Doesn't sound like anyone's in there, she whispered.
Kid opened the door. The room had seemed completely silent from the outside, and so we had thought it would be empty. But there inside was a lone goblin. It was sitting in a chair with a book in its hand. A light steam drifted from the teacup on the table in front of it, and with it a delicate aroma. The goblin peered at us curiously over its spectacles. There was something different about this one. I could tell as much at a glance. Heavens, how rare it is to have guests.
Heavens?
How well spoken for a goblin. I could only feel dread and suspicion at the sight of him, nonetheless. Sorry,
mate, but we're not your guests. Cough up the key to the dungeon if you want to live.
Kid slammed a knife into the table to illustrate her point, but the goblin didn't so much as flinch. Ah, you must be Kid. What a pleasure this is. I've always so wanted to meet you. Why, you're even more ravishing than the rumours would. Before the goblin could finish, Kid's knife flew through the air. With a quick flick of his wrist, the goblin caught the blade with the back of his book, a mere inch from his face. I see that your approach is as radical as the name of your merry band would suggest, the goblin said, pulling the knife free and handing it back to Kid. She took it without a word, but her gaze had changed. She was like a cat, cautiously studying its prey. And I was just getting to the good part too. Oh well, I suppose I shall have to give up on ever finishing it now. The goblin casually flung the book over his shoulder and into a nearby bin. Allow me to introduce myself, if I may. I am Grimsmelt, and I am the guard on watch. No need to stand. Please, do take a seat. You're welcome to tea, of course. The goblin beckoned us to sit down. Did he mean to poison us? If I may. Miguel calmly took a seat, ignoring the obvious suspicion in the air. I decided to trust Miguel's instincts and took a seat next to him. He had some kind of plan in mind, I was sure of it. Kid didn't look like she'd be pulling up a chair anytime soon. She was standing with her arms crossed, eyeing the goblin suspiciously. The goblin poured 3 cups of tea. Here you are. Without the slightest hint of hesitation, Miguel took his teacup and lifted it to his lips. He sipped, then placed the cup back on its saucer. Ilmithian tea, not a blend I'd expect to find here. What a pleasure it is to encounter a fellow connoisseur. Yes, it's a rare blend, and one mainly enjoyed by the noble classes. couldn't believe the conversation I was hearing. I also couldn't help wondering what this rare tea might taste like. My eyes rested on the cup that had been poured for me. I couldn't shake the fear that it might be poisoned, but I also couldn't ignore how delicious it smelled. Before I knew it, the cup was in my hands. "This is great," I blurted out. "I never had such a delicious brew in my entire life." My aches and pains faded away. I glanced over at Kid, who was blowing maniacally at the liquid in our cup. I'd forgotten that she was paranoid about burning her mouth on things. "Now that we're comfortable, let's get down to brass tacks, as they say. I do indeed have the key to the dungeon, as you surmised, but you will also be aware that I cannot simply give it away." I glanced over to Kid again. Typically, she wasn't listening to a word Grimsmeld was saying. She was still huffing and puffing at her tea. It seemed it would be up to me to respond. "I suppose that means you want something in return." "Yeah, you'd like to know what I'd want. I want your heads." Grimswell's eye. "Give me time to read." Or rather, that's what my employer would have me say. But no, I have no such barbarous aspirations. Furthermore, I doubt I'd be a match for you. Grimsmeld chuckled as he said this. "What I live for is the joy of conversation, which I fear my compatriots are ill-equipped to supply. Perhaps you might have one or two ripping yarns to share." Grinning, he added, "I'm sure notorious thieves such as yourself must have more than a few thrilling tales up your sleeves." So he wanted to hear a story. That seemed a more than fair price to pay for the key. I closed my eyes and thought. I know just the story. How did it begin? One night a young girl was walking alone in the forest. And then she was searching for a golden sunflower, the only way to cure her mother's sickness. Then the poor girl went without food for 3 days and 3 nights. The fragments I remembered seemed about right. There was only one way this story could end. I took a breath and began my tale. One night a young girl was walking alone in the forest. She was searching for a golden sunflower, the only way to cure her sick mother's illness. The poor girl went without food for 3 days and 3 nights. And then, in her moment of darkest despair, she saw a brilliant light. It was none other than the golden sunflower she sought. The young girl gratefully pocketed the sunflower seeds. These will surely save my mother, she thought. But it was all a dream. With a smile on her face, the girl drifted off and dreamed forevermore. That was beautiful, murmured Kid, wiping a tear from her eye. Grimswald frowned. Not quite what I was expecting, and not the most riveting of tales, but I suppose it will do. The key, as promised. I took it from Grimswald's hand. Something didn't seem right, though. Was he really going to give it up so easily? Was it really alright to trust such a strange goblin? Grimswald seemed to notice my suspicion. He leaned back into his chair, looking at the ceiling. When I was a young child, a beaver, stupid goblin, I once served General Viper, who was the lord of this manor, until his betrayal by Lord Lynx. Despite my boorishness, Lady Ridley always saw something in me worthy of praise. Wait, Riddle? What's Lynx adopted daughter got to do with anything? Oh, you don't know? Riddle's real father was none other than General Viper himself. What? Lord Lynx spared Lady Riddle's life, so as not to snuff out that of the frozen flame. It's an uncanny stone, you see, has a life of its own, and some kind of spiritual bond with Lady Riddle. If only there was some way that I could free my lady from this manor. Alas, I alone am powerless to do such things. Of course, I would have no qualms if, say, you were to topple the usurper. I assume you intend to slay the beast, I mean. It was a strange inquiry to make so casually. Well, if it comes to it. I was more than a little taken aback by the directness of Grimma's questions. I'd never expected to find one of Lynx's own guards asking me something like that. Suddenly I was shoved aside.
Not if it comes to it. We're gonna kill him tonight, and kill him good.
It was Kid, of course.
And in exchange, I'll have some more of that tea to take with us.
Kid held out her hand before Grimswald could offer an answer. I suppose I have a bag I can share. Grimswald shuffled awkwardly in his seat as he retrieved it. As ever, I was impressed at how Kid's uncompromising attitude and willingness to speak her mind seemed to always get her what she wanted.
Bonza, sit tight and leave the rest to us, mate.
Stowing the bag in her pocket, Kid took the job.
You can trust me, I'm a girl of my word.
That might have been the biggest lie she'd ever told.
Right, let's get moving.
She made for the door with a spring in her step. We left the room and Grimsmell behind. Going up. Top long straight corridor, continued on. Walk. Go on towards the cell.
Right, the key we got from that creepy old goblin should do the trick.
Kid slipped the key into the lock. The heavy door groaned slightly as it slowly swung open. Clammy air rose up around our feet, as if crawling blindly through the darkness. This didn't seem like the kind of place anyone in their right mind would visit voluntarily. We pushed the heavy iron door the rest of the way open and stepped into the darkness. There was a row of cells, all locked behind iron bars. 1, 2.
Oh, Gulliver, Melagad, Zoradad, forgive me, please. Please forgive me.
We heard a voice from the third cell, whimpering and crying pathetically. I strained my eyes to look inside. Faintly, in the darkness, I could see something that looked like a man sitting on the floor. So this was the source of the voice.
Oi, you alright, mate?
Kid called out to the figure.
Forgive me. It's all my fault. All my fault. The Dragoons never deserved this. General, Lady Riddle, oh, forgive me, I beg of you.
The old man didn't seem to respond to us at all. He only sat facing the wall, begging forgiveness for who knows what.
Hello, can you hear me?
Asked Kid, trying again. There'll be no getting through to him. His real self will have long since retreated inside the shell he has created, said Miguel, cutting her off.
Shell?
Shell? What do you mean? I asked. He has built a shell around the core of his psyche in order to shield himself from the truth. He is running from something terrible. He has seen something, or been through something, or has done something. And so he has created his own world on the inside as a final refuge. The outside world lost him forevermore. I looked at Miguel in surprise. I had detected a hint of unspoken sadness in his words. For some reason he was looking at Kid, watching over her as she stared at the man in the cell. Seeming to notice Miguel turned back to face me, assuming his usual emotionless expression once more. We live in a world of sorrow and foolishness. It's only inevitable that some would try to escape it. But despite his hard words, he retained a certain softness, his steely gaze giving way to a gentle light. Do you understand? Think so. I gave a slightly evasive answer. You seem confused. I don't blame you. You'll come to understand eventually. Miguel looked at me and Kid. What was all that about? I wondered. We're not going to get much out of him. He's miles away. Let's just leave him be and try someplace else. Kid made for the door to the dungeon. Wait, called Miguel. We must find some way to get this man to speak.
What for? I mean, he's speaking already, just none of it makes sense. What are you after?
Some things he said piqued my curiosity. He mentioned the Dragoons and Riddle, too.
So? You said the Dragoons are ancient history, snapped Kid. Besides, how can we trust anything he said? He's clearly gone off his rocker.
She had a point. The old man had long since cut his ties to the real world. What did Miguel expect him to say? Without missing a beat, Miguel replied, "We simply have to bring him back to reality."
And how are we going to do that? You want me to do a little dance for him or something? See if that gets his motor going?
Please don't. No. Please don't do that. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them.
What are you saying?
Her eyes narrowed threateningly.
You don't think anyone want to see me dance, is that it?
What? No, completely the opposite. In fact, actually, ignore me.
Nah, this should be good. Enlighten me, why don't you?
He's right, it won't work. And just like that, Kid's fists were flying towards Miguel's face instead of mine. He dodged the blow with ease and carried on as if nothing had happened. We must break through the shell he has created and drag him back to the real world. And in order to do that, we will need some kind of key. Something that will reach him through the barrier he has erected.
Yeah, and where are we going to find this key?
Asked Kid suspiciously. I don't know, came Miguel's simple surprise. There is someone in this manor who can tell us.
You don't mean... You're not talking about Riddle, are you?
I am, Miguel replied with a nod.
Right, fine. Don't know what the hell you expect her to tell us, though.
Kid turned on a hill and made for the door. We left the gibbering old man in the dungeon alone with his sorrow. I followed Kid and Miguel back out into the corridor. Making our way down the corridor, we came to the branch of the path. So, to Riddle's room. Go to the atrium. Found ourselves in a tiny welcoming room. Yep.
Someone there,
came the voice of a young woman. We shrank into the shadows. The woman appeared from deep within the room. She was lightly made up and had a gentle, unthreatening air about her. It was Lynx's daughter.
Strange. I'm sure I heard someone.
I was at a loss as to what to do for a moment, but before I had had time to do much more than hold my breath, Kid had already darted over and thrust a knife out, stopping the blade only a hair's breadth from the woman's neck.
Where's the frozen flame? Answer me!
Her voice came out in a harsh growl. I rushed in to hold Kid back before she hurt the poor woman. Kid, do we really have to do it this way?
Shut your trap, Serge.
Riddle couldn't help but giggle as she watched us bickering.
What are you laughing at?
Kid shot Riddle a harsh look.
It's just, you don't seem like thieves at all. You want me to cut you, girl? I'd be surprised if that knife could cut anything.
For a moment, I felt faint, imagining Riddle on the floor covered in blood. But then, clang, Kid had thrown a knife to the floor, and I saw that it was only a letter opener.
Didn't think you'd notice. Whatever, I'm not here to mess around killing the likes of you anyway. I have no desire for bloodshed either,
said Riddle in a voice that was almost a whisper.
I'm not your enemy. In fact, I want to help you.
There wasn't a hint of hesitation or deception in her voice.
Let me guess, you're trapped in the manor too.
Riddle only lowered her eyes sadly in response to Kid's question.
The frozen flame should never have been allowed to fall into Lynx's hands.
Riddle spoke quietly, but deep emotion clearly underpinned her words.
The flame was once the property of an ancient kingdom to the north, who kept it for generations. It was said to have the uncanny power to guide people and change history itself. After the kingdom fell, the flame changed hands countless times, until eventually it came into my father's possession. That was before I was born. Sometime later, Lynx became aware of the flame's true value and approached my father under false pretenses of friendship. Not a soul suspected what his true intention was. And then on that horrible day, he destroyed everything. He killed everything.
Riddle shook her head, then buried her face in her hands.
I don't care about the frozen flame. I don't care about that stupid accursed stone. It means nothing to me. I just want to take it away from Lynx and smash it to pieces right in front of him.
Only we can make that happen. And only we can make that happen. Riddle looked up with surprise as Miguel spoke. No one else in this world can seize that jewel from Lynx. Riddle stared speechlessly, and then in a low voice she whispered,
What can I do to help you?
There's a survivor of the Acacia Dragoons in the dungeon who we want to help. And if we're to help him, we need your help, said Miguel, taking a step forward.
What? That man is a traitor. It's because of him that Zorand...
Please, it's the only way. Riddle turned her back on us and hung her head low.
The Chamber of Death. There might be something to bring him back to his senses there. After all, it was there that he chose to abandon his pride, his life.
I assume the Chamber of Death must be the cell with this trapped ceiling. Riddle nodded.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem,
started Kid.
That thing damn near killed us last time. You will need to take the Iron Lancer with you. It's a sacred sword said to have been forged by an ancient sage and a sister blade to the crimson-cursed Mezimune. The timeless blessings of the Iron Lancer will surely keep you safe from the Chamber of Death's wickedness. It used to be such a sight to see it in the hands of Zoranda. It danced like the wind, shone like the stars, and struck like lightning. Lost again in memories of fonder times.
Riddle once more bowed her head.
Forgive me, I have little more to tell you.
You've told us more than enough. We'll take our leave now, said Miguel, turning and making for the door.
I wish I had the strength to change things like you do,
whispered Riddle, biting her lip. Kid hesitated for a moment, seemingly deep in thought.
It ain't about strength, it's about having a purpose, something to fight for. I will be praying for you.
Kid shot Riddle a look over her shoulder. Great, maybe you can cross your fingers too. We left the room. Right, so... Up. Towards the terrace. Keep going. In we go. Kid stilled her breath and reached for the handle. The door wasn't locked. It swung slowly open. The room was completely silent. There was no sign of life.
There it is. I take it's not getting turned into mincemeat.
The ancient sword was right where Kid had left it after pulling it out from the pile of junk. She ran over to where it lay. Looking down at the sword, Miguel muttered, "Two ancient blades, the sacred Iron Lancer and the cursed Masamune."
What do you want about, Mag? You know something about this Master Mune?
Miguel said nothing.
Well, it seems to mean something to you.
It does.
Something to do with old friends I don't know about?
Not exactly.
An enemy then?
Not exactly.
You're being weird, Mag. Well, whatever. Oi, numbnuts, grab this thing for me, will ya?
I was still standing by the doorway when Kid called over to me. Who, me?
Yeah, you. Or were you gonna make me lug this bloody thing around the place? I'm just a scrawny little girl, aren't I? Call yourself a gentleman?
My jaw dropped. I knew there wasn't anything I could say to her. Silently, I walked over to Kid and picked up the sword like I was told. Whoa! I nearly fell over. That thing was heavy.
Goodbye. Right, off to the Chamber of Death. Eyes on the prize, lads.
Dragging the sword behind me, I followed Kid out of the room. Continue right. Continue on. Save. Head inside.
Well, this place is just as creepy as I remember. Lovely,
Grumbled Kid. She was looking at the stains on the wall. The ceiling had been pulled back up, but that was no reason to believe it might not come grinding down again at any moment. Bearing in mind what Riddle had told us the room was called, it definitely wasn't somewhere we wanted to linger. Quickly, hissed Miguel, before crouching down and examining the ground for clues. Kid and I crouched down too. What were we even looking for, though? What could the old man have left in this room that would help us bring him back to reality? Flagstones of the floor were smeared with a black gooey substance, which gave off an odd rotten aroma. I shook my head, trying to drive an uncomfortable thought from my mind. Kid saw me and clearly wasn't doing much better herself. She slowly turned, positioning herself so that she was facing away from the stains on the wall. There was no point in thinking like that. I just had to try, but then... The door slammed shut and the gears ground into life.
here we bloody go again. We have to stop it. If we don't deal with the trap, we'll never find what we're looking for.
The ceiling sunk lower and lower. We ducked our heads, desperately trying to avoid the blades that jutted out from the bottom. Kid looked at me and screamed,
The sword!
Use the iron lancer. What? How do you use a sword? There, I drove the sword into the floor with all my might. A shock ran through the room. Beams of light scattered from the blade, covering the floor and walls, then racing upward. The ceiling gave an almighty judder, then stopped. We made it. I sunk to the floor helplessly, my heart racing.
Hey, what's that?
Kid was pointing at part of the wall. It was where we'd seen the message written in blood.
Guess we found what we were looking for.
Part of the wall had collapsed, revealing a cavity behind what looked like a piece of solid stone. Inside I could see something glinting faintly in the darkness. Kid reached in with her fingertips, carefully extracting whatever it was from within. It was a slender ring with a delicately engraved design that looked like an overlapping ferns. The ring was adorned with several small rubies in a pattern that resembled a bunch of grapes.
And the crest of Acacia. This must be the Acacian signet.
Kid put the ring on her middle finger, where it sat uneasily. It didn't seem to be her side. The rubies gave off an eerie glint.
Right, let's not spend any more time in here than we have to.
We managed to foil the trap and retrieve the Acacian signet. I left the irons lancer where it stood, and we exited the room. With Kid in the lead, we headed downstairs. Went down the stairs and continued straight ahead. Right. By the clock tower. To the left side. Down the stairs. Across the atrium. Scream pierced the darkness, turning my blood to ice. I realized then that a pair of crazed, blood-red eyes were staring into the depths of my soul. It was a griffin. In a panic, I tried to slip the knife from my belt. Before I could draw my weapon, the griffin had spread its powerful wings and swooped towards me with an almighty screech. I was knocked back and sent rolling across the ground. I gasped with pain as the wind was knocked out of me.
Serge, you okay?
Every nerve in my body was screaming with pain. I held back the groans and staggered to my feet. I looked up to see the massive griffin in front of me, its hellish red eyes staring down its beak. It was going to attack. What could I do? Almost by reflex, I jumped in close to the griffin's body, but then it lashed out with its talons instead. Ugh! Sharp pain ripped through my waist. Clutching my wounded stomach, I did my best to regain my footing, turned to face the griffin. As the beast's mad red eyes glared at me, I desperately tightened my grip on my knife. I reversed my grip on my knife and plunged it into the griffin's neck with all my might, but it somehow managed to turn its head aside, knocking my hand back at the last moment. Ugh, the impact sent me rolling to the floor. I desperately tried to keep a tight grip on my knife so I wouldn't lose it.
Don't move, Serge,
yelled Kid from behind. Suddenly she landed on my soldiers, then leapt him up into the air. Crack! And he crashed into the side of the creature's skull, making a crunching sound I could feel in my bones. The griffin screeched in agony, and then it turned its mad, crazed eyes towards me, where I lay on the floor, heaving, having been used like a springboard by Kid. Just my luck. He was going to attack. What could I do? Almost by reflex, I ducked the attack. The griffin suddenly beat its wings wildly, sending a barrage of razor-sharp feathers flying at me. But fortunately, every single one of them flew clean over my head. It had been a close shave. I rose to my feet and faced the griffin again. As the beast's mad red eyes glared at me, I desperately tightened my grip on my knife. Keeping a safe distance from the griffin, I looked over to check on the others. Getting some breathing space allowed me a moment to refocus. My wounds didn't feel as bad as I first thought. "My Serge, this ain't a spectator sport," shouted Kid as she gracefully dodged an attack. The Griffin left itself open, and she quickly moved in to land a decisive punch right on the base of its wings. The beast beat its wings awkwardly. She clearly damaged something vital. This was my chance to follow up with the clincher. I crouched down, circling towards its blind spot, only for the accursed creature to spin around and face me. It was going to attack. What could I do? Where's my reflex? I jumped in close to the Griffin's body. It suddenly beat its wings wildly, sending a barrage of rage-hot feathers flying at me. Ugh, the feathers pierced my body. I rolled away to put some distance between us, then quickly pulled out the feathers that had struck into me and turned to face the Griffin again. This is annoying. As the beast's mad red eyes glared at me, I desperately tightened my grip on my knife. I attacked. Fucking attack. Well, I'm not. Plunged it into the Griffin's neck with all my weight. The beast screamed and contorted with agony. I'd done it. I'd landed a blow, and a telling one at that. The Griffin stiffened, suddenly becoming completely rigid. Its eyes rolled into the back of its head, and it fell to the ground with an almighty crash. We did it. We defeated the Griffin. I fell to my knees and breathed a heavy sigh of relief. I started to feel a little worse for wear. I was going to have to be more careful from now on, or this was going to end badly. Maybe you ain't such a drunk, just goes to show you got the mind for something. Glinting with mischief. Fucking hate the random battles, they're annoying. This place again. I'd hoped this was the last time I'd have to come here. Having retrieved the Arcasian signet, we returned to the old man's cell. As soon as we got there, Miguel took a step forward and grabbed onto the bars. They creaked and groaned as he heaved at them, gritting his teeth as he summoned every ounce of his might. Slowly they bowed apart. He stepped into the cell through the gap, and Kid and I followed. The old man was exactly as we had left him, staring into space and muttering meaningless words. Kid walked over him and crouched down. She grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him, "Wakey, wakey, Grandad! We got a few questions for you. Here, get a knife full of this. Ring any bells?" Kid waved the Arcasian signet in his face, shaking him roughly all the while. The old man's head lolled as he limply allowed himself to be manhandled. I tried to get between Kid and the old man. She glared at me. "You're in the way, Serge. We're here for answers, remember?" "But you really want to help him. You can't chicken out now." "You really want to help him, you can't chicken out now." "Look at him. There's no helping him anymore. Surely this all ended for him long ago." "I would not be so certain."
"This is not over. It still means something. He has simply decided to pretend not to see it."
"Yeah, but he's..."
"It's not over, you say?"
Struck by the man's sudden interruption, we all turned to look at him. A faint glimmer of light had returned to his once vacant eyes.
"That's right. None of this is over until we make Lynx pay."
His eyes began to cloud once more.
"So my former allies have finally come for me. I am to blame. It is because of my indiscretion that the Frozen Flame was stolen, and that of all the Arcasian Dragoons, only I remain here in this manor. But now all is well, for you have returned. Oh, Melchizedek, Zorand, where have you been all this time? Did you all return to Lake Stoke?"
"Never mind all that, Grandad. Where's the Frozen Flame? Give us a clue. Anything. Come on, out with it."
I couldn't decide if Kid sounded more annoyed or desperate.
"The Frozen Flame.
Ugh. Ow, ow, ow. The old man looked momentarily confused, and then a wan smile crossed his face.
My word, Lady Riddle, it's been far too long since I last had the pleasure. Why, you only need turn the third candlestick from the left, as you enter the main hall. That will open the underground vaults, as you know.
That candle stick from left. Kid wrapped her arms around the old man and held him tight. And then in a trembling voice she whispered,
I'm sorry. I promise we'll get it back.
The man recoiled in horror, and then began to sob once more.
I am to blame. It's all my fault. Forgive me. Forgive me.
Look, if you want to get out of here, now's your chance.
But it was no use. He was too busy cowering and wailing to hear me.
We're done here, Serge. We can't help him. And there's things we need to be doing.
Thank you, I whispered to the old man before following Kid and Miguel out of the dungeon. Back up. Kid pushed open the heavy door as quietly as she could and peered inside.
Looks like the coast is clear.
She stepped into the main hall. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. The great hall was filled with a heavy silence, a silence unbroken save for the ticking of a large clock that slowly counted the passage of time, as if waiting for something. Several portraits glared down at us with cold eyes. We moved through the feeble glow of the candles.
Third candlestick from the left,
whispered Kid.
1, 2, 3. There.
She reached out towards it. I held my breath as I watched.
Say your prayers, Lynx. We're coming for you.
Kid turned the candlestick. The room trembled with a sudden rhythmic rumbling sound, as if a massive gear was turning. What's that? For a moment I felt a strange sensation, as if I was floating. Do you feel that? I started to stagger. The entire room seems to be moving downward, came the reply from Miguel. I couldn't quite believe it, but I also couldn't deny the feeling of downward motion. The main hall was sinking into the earth. And then another rumble. The room's descent rapidly accelerated. Cold sweat dripped from my back. My heart filled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. What was waiting for us down there? A frozen flame? A prize at the end of this little adventure? But was it really? Would it live up to our expectations? I tightened my fists, which were slick with sweat. What were Kid and Miguel thinking? The room remained veiled in silence. As if in response to my thoughts, a quiet voice came from next to me.
Sometimes
It was Kid. I looked over to see her standing stiffly, staring forward with her hands clenched into fists.
Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a losing battle. A fight I'll never win no matter what I do.
It was a side of her I'd never witnessed before. Even from this angle, I could see fear and doubt flickering across her face. I felt a tender sting in my heart. We'll win, I promise. There's nothing to worry about. We'll win in the end, I promise.
Drongo.
She gave a gentle smile.
can't promise anything in this world, Serge. There's no guarantees. But thanks anyway.
She grinned again, seeming a little embarrassed, and looked me straight in the eye. Then I had the strangest sensation. This wasn't Kid. Or, not the only kid anyway. I was overwhelmed by the inexplicable oddness of the idea. She noticed immediately, of course, and our little moment was over. The kid I knew was back in the room.
Trying to catch flies, mate?
Sorry, it's just for a moment there. Not that you were someone else.
What are you on about?
She gave me a confused look, tilting her head. Must be because we're drawing near to the frozen flame. Must be because we're drawing near to the frozen flame. Blech. Miguel's voice, as soft as ever, slipped unbidden from the shadows.
What the heck are you two on about?
Kid turned towards him with another puzzled frown. There is another self within you, struggling against the pull of the abyss. But what had she been talking about? A crash split apart the silence as if we'd collided with something. Screech! Loud metal scraping filled the air. The room rocked and finally came to a halt.
Looks like the end of the line. Or change.
The swelling branch on the organ suddenly filled the air. No one had so much as touched it, and yet the keys and the pedals were moving by themselves. The melody it played was both unsettling and sad.
Funeral tune, is it? Really great guests.
Kid took a stride forward, then turned to face me and Miguel.
Come on, let's go.
Miguel and I gently nodded our assent. Kid grinned and turned back to the door.
I'm coming for you, Lynx. This is the end for you.
And with that, she led us from the hall. We continued down a long dark corridor, the walls slick with condensation. The air was thick and heavy, as though ripe with the stench of death. Were we really getting close to Link's hidden vault at last? Was there any turning back now, for any of us? There was something strange about Kid that night. Miguel didn't seem to be his usual self either. To begin with, it was vanishingly rare for him to speak so much, let alone to show any kind of emotion. What happened to make them change like that? Unable to take the silence anymore, I decided to speak. It was the question that had been on my mind all this time. What is the frozen flame? Is the frozen flame really just a jewel? There was only silence in return. And then when it seemed like no one would reply at all, Miguel spoke. His low voice echoed in the corridor. It is a sacred stone that cures any ills, heals all wounds, and grants eternal life. Or so some still believe. In truth, it is part of a tremendous rock that fell from the skies long, long ago. That rock was the source of a hereto unknown power, with which mankind's hidden potential was unlocked. You could say that it was humanity's dreams made manifest. But it is not always good to have one's dreams come true. Many were bewitched by that great power. Some were led astray by it. It even led to a kingdom's ruin. A kingdom once prosperous, yet now is no more than figments and dust, its name lost to history. For a moment, I thought I heard a hint of pain and sadness in Miguel's voice. Maybe it was just my nerves. Wait, how do you know all this, Miguel? He said nothing. He only stared at me with his piercing dark eyes, and then continued onward in silence. For a while, only the sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor, and then Kid gave a doubtful hum.
Look, I don't know if all that stuff about the frozen flame is true or not. It's neither here nor there to me.
She raised a fist.
We're here to settle the score with Lynx by nicking the thing. That's all I know, and that's all I want to know.
What Lynx seen in the frozen flame, Had it been worth risking so much for? Crashed on down the dark passageway, each of us alone with our thoughts. Concentrating on my footsteps lessened the burden of my worries somewhat, and I felt a renewed vigour to a degree. Suddenly, Miguel stopped in his tracks. Wait. Huh? Kid turned around puzzled. Just then a powerful light surged across the floor, and a ring-shaped signal appeared. Damn it, a blood circle. Kid and Miguel were at least quick enough to try and jump out clear, but they weren't quite quick enough, and the three of us were trapped in a circle of blinding light. The sigil rotated left and right, with us at the centre, cutting off all routes of escape. We're trapped! A wall of heat and wind blew up around us, and swirling lines and spirals of light assailed us wherever we turned. Don't let the light mesmerise you. Cover your eyes, shouted Miguel, raising a hand over his mask. Turn with the light, not against it. There has to be a way out. What? Barely even understand what's going on. Kid's elbow brushed against the wall of light surrounding us, sending sparks flying. Be careful. Merely to touch it is more than enough to harm you. Stay well back. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through. Right, twice. 2 steps to the right. Couldn't find a way through, and plunged helplessly into the swirling vortex of light. I made it through one of the barriers of light, but not without taking a few bumps and bruises. We weren't out of the woods yet. There was still another wall of light, and this one was swirling with a great wind. Slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, and look for a gap through which to escape. Turned left 3 times. 3 steps to the left. Couldn't find a way through and plunged helplessly into the swirl. What is the way? Jesus Christ, why are these instructions not working? Amid the brilliant sea of brightness, I chanced upon a face of an angel, her eyes filled with sorrow. Serge! I said right twice, left. Okay, apparently that's wrong, whatever. Good fucking lord. And I got the damn thing that said, turn right twice, turn left 3 times, turn right twice. No, of course that can't work, can it? Be fucking sensible. Unless, of course, I got it wrong and missed a step. Which would be problematic. back to where I was. Ah, where did I save? Oh, let me fucking save at this point, please. You know what, I'm tempted to just look it up. So I don't have to fucking do this multiple times. Should just let me fucking save anywhere anyway, but no, that'd be fucking sensible. There's instructions. It's just a terrible translation, isn't it? Right. And 2 left. Only 2 right. God's sake. So it was completely wrong. It doesn't fucking surprise me. Turn right 3 times? There, I see it. That's our way through. And we have in the wall line definitely not through. Here, we go, this way! Managed to get through the barrier unscathed. We weren't out of the woods yet. It was still under the wall of light swirling with a great wind in front of us. Slowly turned my body to follow the luminous in the real light and looking through the gap to escape through. Twice. 2 steps to the left. There I see it. That's our way through. Pulled the gap in the wall of light and carefully walked to it. Kid, Miguel, this way! Managed to get through the barrier unscathed. Only the midget that was standing on the wall lights waiting for us. Tell me away. Right, twice. 2 steps to right. No, I see it. That's our way through. And we get from the wall right, Kid Miguel this way, blah blah blah. And the instructions the Griffin gave me were completely fucking wrong. Suddenly my body felt light, and I staggered 2 or 3 steps forward. We were back in the deserted passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. The sigil had vanished from the floor, and everything was silent, as if nothing had ever been amiss. And then I looked up. Looks like we finally made it, boys. Kid strolled up to the door with a wicked grin on her face. The true frozen flame awaits. Miguel's eyes gave a glint from behind his mask, like glass catching moonlight in the darkness of night. Let's go. Kid reached for the handle.
So this is the place, huh?
Kid narrowed her eyes, straining to see our surroundings in the darkness. A vast, pitch-black expanse surrounded us. Whichever way we looked, it was as if we'd entered an impossibly vast cave. We're in a place forgotten by time, unknown to the world, hidden deep within the bowels of night. A gentle crimson light hovered in the darkness, a frozen flame.
All right, now it's ours.
The light of the flame ebbed and waned gently, as if responding to Kid's voice.
What the heck is this place? There's mountains of bloody rubble everywhere.
Miguel took a step further into the room and said in a whisper that was almost a groan, "No, it can't be." Oh, but it is. The ruins of the lost kingdom of mages. The voice drifted down through the darkness from above. Kid looked up in shock.
Lynx, I'll kick your free-bitten ass so hard you'll kiss the moon.
Kid pulled a knife from her belt and threw it as hard as she could. It fell to the floor with a clang as if knocked out of the air by some unseen hand. Still the same impetuous child as ever, I see. There's no way to greet an old friend.
Smarmy bastard!
Kid gritted her teeth with rage. And you, Shadow Dweller, I'll have none of your tricks this time. You must think me a fool if you believe I'll fall for that again. Miguel, who had been quietly slipping into the darkness that surrounded us, stopped dead in his tracks. So this was the infamous Lynx. The lord of this deadly manor. And the man who had murdered the closest thing Kid had to a family, who had assassinated General Viper and eradicated the Order of the Acacia Dragoons. A pleasure as always, my dear Kid. And I must say, you followed the trail of breadcrumbs I laid for you admirably closely. My greedy little sneak thief.
What the bloody?
She stepped forward, bristling. Lynx narrowed his eyes as his lips twisted into a snarl. You know what I want, Kid. Give me the stone you carry. Stone? Did Kid have some kind of jewel I didn't know about?
Don't know what you want about, mate.
She just managed to recover her composure, narrowing her eyes scornfully at her old foe. Spare me the act, child. I know that you have it. I know she gave it to you. Hand over the time egg, now. What? Whatever it was, I'd never heard of it.
You're dreaming if you think I'll give it to the likes of you.
Kid shot back.
It's all I have left of her. I'll never let go of it. Not for anyone and definitely not for you. I'll tell you what's gonna happen, you bastard. First I'm gonna take the frozen flame, and then I'm gonna ram it down your throat.
Incorrigible fool. I was hoping this might be a civilized exchange. Alas, it seems my words will only fall on deaf ears, and you are determined to repeat your past errors.
Lynx moved his hand to the grip of the ornate golden saber that hung from his belt.
Last time I showed you mercy and let you leave with your life, that was a mistake, one which I mean to correct.
Serge, Miguel, stay back.
Kid took a step forward, glaring at Lynx, her gaze unflinching.
This ends here and now. You'll pay for what you've done. You'll pay for what you did to Lucia. Luca, even.
With a scream, Kid leapt into the air like a bird taking flight. A foot lashed out in a scything kick aimed right at the side of Lynx's head. But there was no contact. Where Lynx had been mere moments before, now there was only empty space. Kid landed and immediately launched herself back into the air, putting the full force of her momentum into another kick. This time Lynx leaned back, letting Kid's foot swing past, only a hair's breadth from his nose. And then it was Lynx's turn. He lashed out with his saber, carving an arc through the air in front of him. Kid was ready for him, however, and had already jumped back to a safe distance. The two glared at each other from mere footsteps apart.
At least you had the decency to prepare a little better this time than last time,
Lynx purred. A red line appeared on Kid's cheek, slowly coalescing into a drop of blood. Kid! In a flash, she launched herself into yet another attack. Lynx dodged to the side, then made to strike her with the hilt of his saber. Kid moved awkwardly to avoid the attack, losing her footing. And then, Lynx was on her like a bird of prey before she could fully recover. There was a gasp and a cough as Lynx drove his knee into the pit of her stomach. It collapsed, a steady stream of red dripping from her lips.
Will that be all, girl?
Lynx gave Kid a merciless kick to the side, sending her flying. She landed on a pile of rubble, her body rolling until she hit a large stone pillar, and there she lay, lifelessly still. Kid! Kid! I screamed her name as I charged towards Lynx, but Miguel was there already. He flew through the darkness, a part of the shadows, before crashing down on Lynx like a bolt from the blue. Lynx jumped back, and countless threads of light flew from his fingertips towards Miguel. With a droning hum, the threads of light surrounded Miguel, crossing over one another. They spread to form a lattice of light that gave off a blinding glare and trapped Miguel where he stood.
What is this?
Miguel struggled and groaned, attempting to shield his eyes with his hands.
It is a simple enough spell, my shadowy friend, for those inclined to learn it, and one which sadly for you leaves no darkness in which to hide.
Lynx leered at Miguel with a venomous grin.
You've been quite the thorn in my side. I'll let you live long enough to regret it.
Miguel struggled and groaned. I had to do something. Kid and Miguel needed me. What was I going to do? I charged at Lynx. I screamed as I rushed towards Kid's nemesis, and then, in one fluid motion, he spun around to face me, lashing out with his saber. I tried my best to dodge the blow, but the blade sliced into my body. Collapsed in a heap and rolled down onto the rubble.
You aren't the first arrogant little street rat I've cut down, and you won't be the last.
His claw-like fingers clamped around my throat. I couldn't breathe. Tightening his grips, Lynx lifted me bodily until my feet were dangling in the air. I could feel his talons mercilessly digging deeper and deeper into my neck. Panic filled my mind.
Look, kid. See your friend. See him suffer. This is your doing.
This is your hand around his neck. Kid's breathing was ragged. Her blood still dripped from her lips. Opening an eye, she groggily raised her head. But she couldn't get up. She didn't have the strength.
Serge.
Give me the time egg. Do you know what it is? I suspect not. Think of it as a concentrated pocket of space. With the frozen flame and the time egg in hand, one can bend the fabric of space and time and rewrite the past. There are errors that I mean to correct, mistakes in the past that must be set right. Link's narrow, emotionless eyes returned to my face. How long before he perishes, I wonder. Struggled to breathe, but could only make choking sounds. Kid screamed my name. Decide. Decide. Will you watch the boy die or relent? Does his life mean nothing to you?
Can't.
She balled her hands into fists and dropped her gaze. My vision started to fade. And then I heard her voice, as she struggled to speak through the pain.
I'm sorry, Serge, but I swore I'd sacrifice anything to stop Lynx.
Don't worry. Don't worry about me. It was all I could do to force the words out past Link's icy grip. I was starting to black out. Was this really how it was going to end?
For crying out loud. Fine, you win. Here, have your damn rock.
Link's grip on my throat loosened. Groaning with pain, Kid reached a shaky hand into her shirt. I knew you would come around in the end. Lynx threw my body to the ground and walked over towards her.
Just shut up and take it, you bastard. It's all you deserve.
With all the strength she could muster, Kid lashed out at Lynx with her right hand. He leapt back in a desperate attempt to evade the blow, but it was too late. Kid's nails, sharp as cat claws, raked mercilessly into his face. Lynx roared with pain. He staggered, clutching his left eye. Blood oozed through the gaps in his fingers. You wretched little shit of a girl. Lynx stood awkwardly, clutching at his wound on his face. The finger of his free hand arched in furious talons as he walked back towards Kid, who still lay on the ground. I will kill you all. He kicked her hard, concentrating all of his wrath and venom into the blow. Kid gasped as all the wind was knocked out of her, yet more blood ran from her mouth as her body rolled across the floor. Kid! I yelled hoarsely, clutching my burning throat with one hand. Lynx turned his head slowly to look at me, one eye fixing on me coldly as it came into view. He took a step toward me. Yes, perhaps it would be better to start with you, my dear Kid. Rest assured that your friend's death will be the most elaborate and painful one. You will truly know what it means to suffer, boy. I will put you through the same suffering as I did that Luca woman. Kid's body stirred with shock and horror. Her eyes slowly opened, fixing on Lynx. They were wild eyes, stained with the blood that poured from her brow. Gritting her teeth, she staggered to her feet.
Lynx! Lynx!
Then an explosion of light burst forth from the frozen flame. Another light began to form somewhere near Kid's chest, resonating with the light from the frozen flame. The twin lights entwined, twirling slowly upward, and as it rose, the golden spiral spread. No, this cannot be. Lynx stood motionless, transfixed by the spectacle. Was this the Time Egg's power? Kid screamed as a raging blaze of light engulfed her.
I'll never let you do it again! I'll never let you steal from me again!
Bathed in the glow, her body shook. Blood-red tears dropped from her eyes as they took on a distant look, and then she collapsed to the ground, as if all the life had gone out of her. I heard a voice. It was quiet and still like the evening. it has come to pass. Kid is retracing her lost memories back through time, back to the Lost Kingdom. It was through her power that the kingdom fell, that it was swallowed in the all-encompassing vortex of time. In her grief, she wished to disappear. Her past, her future, she wanted it all to sink into the void, to be lost in the seething whirl of time. She despised what she had done. She closed herself off from all that she saw and heard, and cursed her very existence. But the stone wished for her to live. The hands of her clock were rewound, her memories unravelled. The stone gave her a chance to begin again. The stone had both the power and the will to bring all this about. Sinking through the sea of time, she drifted here, a mere babe, her memories a blank slate. The time egg shattered, its fragments raining down on the world, becoming shards of sorrow and anguish. The world around us drifted into pieces. It swallowed us, engulfed us. We were consumed, locked into the void. And then, a girl's scream echoed in the darkness. That voice, was that Kid? It sounded just like... No, this is all wrong. The black vortex, it surrounds us. No, stop! Where am I? Lost everything, now I can but wonder. The world drifts, and time is a blur. There is only an endless unknowable sea. This is where time begins and ends. This is where all life finds peace. I see myself as a baby, crying next to my mother, an exhausted yet proud look upon her face. I see myself aged and wizened, waiting to succumb to death's embrace with a smile. I see countless incarnations of myself, walking time's intricate corridors as a ghost. This is a place where countless worlds overlap, and infinite dreams play out. If only I could rest here for eternity. If only I could free myself of all my burdens in sleep. But I hear it calling me, I hear the song. Kid? Kid, please. Can you hear me? Kid? Kid, say something. Kid, you've got to stay with me. Who's that? Who's calling me? Serge? Where am I? Kid, you're awake. I heard a song. It was beautiful. It was that song that Lucia loves. Nuka loved. There. Kid closed her eyes and her face glowed with a warm smile. I'll never forget that song. It makes me want to cry whenever I hear it. I'm just glad you're back. It felt like I was losing you. Like you were going somewhere far, far away. Before I knew it, I was humming the song for you. Don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I wrote it when I first started out as a musician. I knew you liked it, so I... Kid gave a gentle nod. It was you. You were the one who called me back. That was you calling my name. My name. Thanks, Serge. It's okay. It's okay now. I'm back. Suddenly she gasped with pain. Link's saber had plunged deep into her right shoulder. and towering over us was the Lynx himself. I told you, kid. I told you I would kill you. She had no strength left to fight. What was I going to do? Damn you! I charged towards him with all the strength I had left. It's quite enough, brat. Lynx lashed out at me with his saber. I staggered and collapsed to the ground. What about Kid? Was she okay? I looked desperately around to find her, my eyes clouded with pain. Alas, your time has come. He raised his saber high, preparing to strike. Enough! Stunned, we looked towards the intruder. You. There stood an old crone, her wizened features obscured by a heavy hood. How had she made it all the way down here? Lady Verrill. And what have we done to bring Pore's Magister in I wonder? He growled.
It's been far too long, Lord Lynx. A pity that I seem not to have caught you at your best.
Crone met Lynx's mad stare head on.
I will take the frozen flame. After all, it seems you two have been quite unable to decide which of you should have it.
She raised a hand, and armed soldiers poured into the room. McGill lifted Kid to her feet. It seems like a good time to leave. Lynx snarled. You'll regret this, witch. He kicked off from the floor, and his body rose into the air. Then he turned his venomous glare on us. And you, Kid, you'll pay for this with your life soon enough. You will never be safe from me. With that, he disappeared like a puff of smoke. The crone lingered for a moment, her eyes resting on us.
Kid, if you wish to try and steal the frozen flame again, you are welcome to try any time you please. We'll be waiting. But you'll have to get out of here alive first.
The soldiers drew their weapons and fell upon us.
Darkness, heed my call.
With Kid slumped against him. Darkness, heed my call. With Kid slumped against him, Miguel spread his arms and drew a sigil in the air. Hurry, Surge. This way. Grabbed onto him and plunged into the blackness. Thanks to Miguel's magic, we managed to escape the manor alive. The lights of torches dotted the forest, and we could hear the soldiers calling to one another. We stopped briefly in the darkness of the woods, and Kid leaned heavily on a tree, desperately trying to quiet her ragged breathing. A terrible wound she'd suffered, and it seemed to be taking its toll. Are you okay, Kid?
Yeah, don't worry about me, mate.
We're surrounded. It won't be long before they find us, said Miguel, his eyes cautiously scanning the area. Kid raised her head to look at me.
It's me and Miguel they want. Get out of here, Surge. Us they want, not you.
What are you saying? I'm not leaving you here. Look at you. You can barely stand.
It's nothing I can't handle. And besides, I got Miguel with me. They catch you with us. They won't go easy on you.
But...
I remembered everything. I remembered another me. A me from a long, long time ago.
Slowly Kid averted her gaze, looking up at the night sky.
I have to go.
The stars reflected in her eyes, and suddenly she looked like nothing more than an ordinary young girl with a sad, distant expression on her face. Kid?
Don't worry, Serge. I'm okay. We'll meet again.
Kid smiled.
We'll meet again. Somewhere. Someday. Some time. Promise.
Her eyes closed gently.
Didn't manage to nick the frozen flame in the end. I lost the time egg too. Everything I'd left of Lucas. But it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. There's something inside me that shines brighter than any stupid jewel.
The most important thing in the world. She opened her eyes again and fixed them on me. I could have lost myself in their depths forever.
No one can take it from me. Not for as long as I live.
There was nothing else in the world I want. There was nothing else in the world I wanted but this. I doubted I'd ever want anything again. I only wanted this moment. All the clocks in the world could have stopped right then and there for all I cared. And that was exactly what I wished for as I gazed at her.
Goodbye, Serge. Thanks.
She looked down, then turned away, and disappeared into the darkness of the night. Would I ever see her again?
Kid! Don't follow me, Serge. Please, just don't.
It strained to try and catch a glimpse of her as the last traces of her shadow vanished. Vanished towards a place I might never reach again. No, Kid! I leapt on my feet, meaning to chase after her, but a shadow soon blocked my path. McGill? Without saying a word, he slowly shook his head. Behind the mask, I saw a sadness in his eyes. And the shadow withdrew and melted into the darkness. McGill! Kid! Wait, don't leave me! I screamed into the night, but there was no reply. The black silence swallowed my cries. Kid! Kid! And so ends another tale. Perhaps one day I'll see Kid, McGill and Riddle again. One day. Somewhere at another time, in another world. Perhaps none of us will even realize it. But that's a story for another day. For now I must put down my pen. Closed my grandfather's diary. And then, from downstairs, I heard my mother calling.
Did you hear me? Your friend's here.
Nimble footsteps charged up the stairs. The door flew open. In tumbled a young girl, a girl who seemed somehow familiar.
Hey, Serge, it's a beautiful day for adventuring. Found a run-down old manor off in the woods to the north. You want to go exploring? Come on, put down the book and let's get out there.
Did they not bother to translate the... So that what, just added 2 more timelines to the whole bloody Chrono Cross? Oy. really does fuck up things though, doesn't it? In... Hmm... Brilliant. Well, there are 7 goddamn I ain't doing that. Anyway. So now, tomorrow, we start Chrono Cross. Oh, that's wonderful new... added bonus features for this version. Which I will abuse. But anyway, for now though, bye!